Chapter 610. Chu Feng's body tensed up and was somewhat stiff. His expression was unsightly as he thought of the possibilities. He had recognized so many nephews along the way. What if they were reincarnated as his descendants? This was a typical case of asking for a beating. Why did he carve words for no reason? Was it fated in the unseen world to take revenge? At the same time, it would be a bit easier to handle if he met a nephew, but it would be even more chaotic if he met a brother. His face was about to turn green. It was said that what one feared would come. He was truly doubtful and somewhat guilty. Could it be that he would really encounter such bad luck? It would be terrible if there really was a scoundrel in the unseen world. Chu Feng's expression was gloomy and his heart was at a loss. But then he remembered that giving birth wasn't a matter of one person. He just had to cooperate and maintain his Vajra body. Unfortunately, this wasn't something he could control. Qin Luoyin was right in front of him. Her snow-white skin was sparkling and exquisite, and her beautiful eyes were bright blue. Chu Feng was now a captive. He was being suppressed. He had actually been captured involuntarily. This was unimaginable in the past. He had been captured by a descendant of the damning Pure Land. At this moment, Qin Luoyin's skin was as smooth as ice and as fair as jade. It was just that her temperament was flirtatious and her bright red lips were slightly parted. She was extremely sexy and her large eyes were misty. She was different from usual because she had been greatly affected by this purgatory. She was usually regarded as a goddess-like character when she walked through the starry skies. She was shrouded in a holy halo from head to toe and simply couldn't reveal this kind of charm. Bang! She gave Chu Feng a slap and brushed her white and delicate hand. However, Chu Feng felt a sharp pain in his chest as though he had been struck by lightning. He almost coughed up blood but couldn't do anything as his energy was sealed. He dared to be angry but couldn't do anything. Qin Luoyin, how about we part ways here? We'll meet again if we're fated. Let's call it a day, Chu Feng said. But then he let out a muffled groan as a sparkling arm pressed down on his chest. The impact caused his blood and qi to churn and he almost lost his breath. Chu Feng was indignant and glared at her. She was so close that his breath smelled like orchids and her soft body carried a sweet fragrance. However, there was also a killing intent that could be fatal. As expected, an ivory-white arm wrapped around his neck. It looked ambiguous as they rubbed against each other. However, the arm gradually tightened until his neck was in pain and he was almost suffocated. Chu Feng stretched out a hand silently and tapped the back of her head. However, nothing worked. Although he had gathered a wisp of energy, he couldn't hurt her at all. At this moment, Qin Luoyin's entire body was covered in a layer of holy radiance. Her skin was sparkling and translucent like a protective, immortal light. Not to mention an attack of this level, even a visualization realm evolver would find it difficult to injure her under normal circumstances. Then, just as Chu Feng was about to erupt in anger, his expression suddenly became odd. His body became restless as some kind of instinct betrayed him. His whole body was on fire as he threw himself back into the previous entanglement. Amidst the flickering blue flames, a charming scene could be seen. It was as though a snow-white snake lady had appeared. She was exceptionally beautiful but also extremely dangerous. Chu Feng was affected by her emotions and almost lost himself. He shivered in the depths of his heart. This reincarnation flame was truly terrifying. It could uncover all kinds of emotions and desires in the depths of one's heart. In front of him, Qin Luoyin's face was flawless and her hair was as smooth as satin. It draped over her snow-white body and gave her a strange, flirtatious temperament that was exceptionally charming. She was completely different from usual. She had transformed from a pure and holy goddess into a demoness. She possessed a beauty that could turn all living things upside down. Her eyes were full of charm and charm. Of course, her bright blue eyes were also alarming, indicating how dangerous she was. Chu Feng pushed her away. In any case, he couldn't allow a woman to act like a tyrant. How could he allow himself to be suppressed to such an extent? Unfortunately, all his efforts had failed. In the end, he could only chant the breathing technique scripture in an attempt to undo the seal. At the same time, he could distract himself and prevent himself from sinking into this place. I'll maintain my indestructible Vajra body. Naturally, I won't have to worry about a group of nephews coming to take revenge and cause trouble for me. Chu Feng clenched his teeth with a resolute gaze. Unfortunately, things didn't happen according to one's subjective will. In the end, his expression changed. 2 hours later, Chu Feng's entire body was covered in white mist. His body was glowing with sweat and his expression was odd. He couldn't help but glance toward the direction of the ghost to see if anything would charge out. He clenched his teeth and said, "All of you, the relatives I've carved with words on, you better behave." That was because his indestructible Vajra body had been broken. At this time, multicolored lights appeared between the heaven and earth. They weren't limited to the blue flames. Purple, silver, gold, and scarlet appeared and spread out from the radiant city of death to this place. This caused the purgatory space to become increasingly restless. Their hearts trembled as all kinds of uncontrollable emotions erupted. "Sigh, it's very difficult to maintain the indestructible Vajra body," Chu Feng mumbled. Boom! At this moment, Qin Luoyin's body became increasingly resplendent as though a true immortal had awakened. Lustrous luster overflowed and grew increasingly powerful. The death substitution talisman on her body was glowing, but it couldn't withstand the reincarnation flames any longer. The flames engulfed and suppressed her. Her emotions fluctuated violently as her body was about to be devoured by the terrifying flames. The death substitution talisman was refined by saints using heavenly materials and earthly treasures as well as part of their own origin. Otherwise, how could it protect a person's life? As time went by, the saint's life origin energy would be whittled away. Only in this way could the protected live on. This was a completely equivalent exchange, and the price of life origin energy was even higher. In order to protect the most outstanding disciple of the orthodoxy, the damning Pure Land was willing to invest a great deal of effort on Qin Luoyin. Bang! Finally, Chu Feng recovered and used the robbery induction breathing technique to break the restriction. He wanted to counter the other party, but in the end, Qin Luoyin's body tensed up and a holy radiance blossomed. She immediately became vigilant. One had to admit that her intuition was too sharp. Moreover, she woke up in a split second at this moment. She hadn't severed her demonic self, but her true self had emerged to control her body and see through everything. In truth, she had always been a bystander. She had long since known what had happened, but she couldn't stop it. Now, her flawless face changed color as she raised her palm to slap Chu Feng to death. "I'm the victim." Chu Feng naturally wouldn't resign himself to death. The worst had happened. The other party had regained consciousness, and he did everything he could to resist. He grabbed Qin Luoyin's arms and waist and then smashed his head against her lustrous forehead with great force. In the blink of an eye, he felt as though his head had split open and he was seeing stars. This happened very suddenly, and so did Qin Luoyin. She had just woken up slightly and had withdrawn from the hypnotic state. She was no longer 2 realms above Chu Feng and was only 1 realm away. Her vision turned dark and she almost fainted from the impact. Her forehead was too painful. The two rolled about as Chu Feng rammed into her continuously. "You shameless bastard, I'll tear you into 10,000 pieces." Qin Luoyin flew into a rage out of humiliation. The current situation between the two was too awkward. Her battle clothes had long since disappeared and her entire body was aching. This was especially true for her forehead, which had been injured. Chu Feng was fighting with his life on the line and wanted nothing more than to smash both of their heads at the same time. This was a method of mutual destruction. It was for self-preservation. That was because, as far as he knew, Qin Luoyin was 2 realms higher than him. He didn't know that the other party wasn't as powerful after exiting the hypnotic state. The two rolled about and Qin Luoyin was on the verge of collapse. She was a goddess-level character who walked the starry skies and was admired by countless young evolvers. Yet, such a thing had happened today. The most excessive thing was that the two of them were still entangled. She was extremely angry and her face was flushed red. She really wanted to kill the other party immediately. "Luoyin, where are you?" Suddenly, an anxious shout rang out from the sky. A beam of light shot out and the sky seemed to be torn apart. The voice came from the outside world. The purgatory space had been opened by someone. "Martial Granduncle!" Qin Luoyin cried out in surprise. She revealed a joyous expression, but the current situation caused her expression to change. She was about to go crazy from shame and indignation. The saint of the damning Pure Land was pleasantly surprised. "Luoyin, there are reincarnation flames everywhere below. We don't dare investigate. Come up yourself." Apparently, the people above didn't know what was happening here. They didn't dare probe with their spiritual power for fear of being destroyed. Chi! A waterfall descending in this direction. "Quick, this is our sect's supreme treasure, the immortal binding rope. Come up quickly. Even it can't stay here for long. Once the reincarnation flames erupt, everything will be destroyed." The saint's anxious voice came from the sky. Qin Luoyin struggled fiercely. Divine light erupted from her body as she struggled to break free from Chu Feng. In truth, Chu Feng was very excited when he saw the void split open. But his heart turned cold after hearing the damning Pure Land saint's voice, and he loosened his grip. He didn't want to go up with her. Otherwise, he would definitely die. Bang! All of a sudden, Qin Luoyin struck Chu Feng with her palm. At the same time, she rushed up and grabbed the dazzling immortal binding rope. She flew up at top speed. Along the way, Qin Luoyin turned back and gazed at Chu Feng. Then, she put on a battle robe and rushed up along the immortal binding rope. Chu Feng's expression was uncertain as he stared at her back. "I'm telling you, you can't give birth. Go to hell." This was Qin Luoyin's final reply. Chu Feng muttered to himself, "Those relatives don't act recklessly." Then, he sighed. How was he going to get out of this purgatory? "There'll be a way. Wait until I get out. I'll surprise you all." He firmly believed that he would be able to escape very soon. At the end of the path of reincarnation, in the reincarnation cave on the other shore, a young Taoist was crying loudly. "God damn it, who stole my fortune? Don't let me know, or else I'll tangle with you for the rest of my life. Ugh! I can't always stay here and not reincarnate. I've found some fortune. Sigh, I should just go on my way and try to find a good family. Immeasurable deity, damn you, I'm going to reincarnate with my memories. Just you wait, I'll find you. Unless you're my biological father in the next life, I'll beat you to death. No, even if you're related to me by blood, I'll still settle some debts with you. Goddamn it, you're the most hateful. How dare you trick me? Just you wait." Chapter 6:11. Chu Feng's body tensed up and was somewhat stiff. His expression was unsightly as he thought of all the possibilities. He had recognized so many nephews along the way. What if they were reincarnated as his descendants? This was a typical case of asking for a beating. Why did he carve words for no reason? Was it fated in the unseen world to take revenge? At the same time, it would be a bit easier to deal with a nephew, but it would be even more chaotic if he were to meet a brother. His face was about to turn green. It was said that what one feared would come. He was truly doubtful and somewhat guilty. Could it be that he would really encounter such bad luck? It would be terrible if there really was a scoundrel in the unseen world. Chu Feng's expression was gloomy and his heart was at a loss. But then he remembered that giving birth wasn't a matter of one person. He just had to cooperate and maintain his Vajra body. Unfortunately, this kind of thing wasn't under his control. Qin Luoyin was right in front of him. Her snow-white skin was exquisite and her beautiful eyes were bright blue. Chu Feng was currently a captive and being suppressed. He had actually been captured involuntarily. This was unimaginable in the past. He had been captured by a descendant of the damning Pure Land. At this moment, Qin Luoyin's skin was as smooth as ice and as fair as jade. It was just that her temperament was flirtatious and her bright red lips were slightly parted. She was extremely sexy and her large eyes were misty. She was different from usual because she had been greatly affected by this purgatory. She was usually regarded as a goddess-like character when she walked through the starry skies. She was shrouded in a holy halo from head to toe and simply couldn't reveal this kind of charm. Bang! She gave Chu Feng a blow and brushed her white and delicate hand. However, Chu Feng felt a sharp pain in his chest as though he had been struck by lightning. He almost coughed up blood but couldn't do anything as his energy was sealed. He dared to be angry but couldn't do anything. Qin Luoyin, how about we part ways here? We'll meet again if we're fated. Let's call it a day, Chu Feng said. But then he let out a muffled groan as a sparkling arm pressed down on his chest. The impact caused his blood and qi to churn, and he almost lost his breath. Chu Feng was indignant as he glared at her. She was so close, and her breath was like orchids. Her soft body carried a sweet fragrance, but it also contained killing intent. This could be fatal. Sure enough, an ivory-white arm wrapped around his neck. It looked ambiguous, and their ears were rubbing against each other. However, the jade-like arm was slowly tightening, causing his neck to hurt. In the end, he almost suffocated. Without a sound, Chu Feng also stretched out a hand and tapped the back of her head. However, nothing worked. Although he had gathered a trace of energy, he was unable to hurt her at all. At this moment, Qin Luoyin's entire body was covered in a layer of holy radiance. Her skin was sparkling and translucent like a protective, immortal light. Not to mention an attack of this level, even a visualization realm evolver would find it difficult to injure her under normal circumstances. Then, just as Chu Feng flew into a rage, his expression suddenly became strange. His body stirred restlessly, and some sort of instinct betrayed him. His entire body burned, and he threw himself back into the tangle from before. Blue flames danced in this area, and a charming and gentle scenery could be seen amidst the haze. It was as though a snow-white snake lady had appeared. She was exceptionally beautiful but also extremely dangerous. Chu Feng was affected by her emotions and was about to lose himself. His heart trembled. This reincarnation flame was truly terrifying and astonishing. It could uncover all kinds of emotions and desires in the depths of one's heart. Before him, Qin Luoyin's face was flawless. Her hair was as glossy as satin and draped over her snow-white body. She now possessed a strange, flirtatious temperament that was exceptionally charming. She was completely different from her usual self. She had transformed from a pure and holy goddess into a demoness. She possessed a beauty that could turn all living things upside down, and her flowing eyes were extremely charming. Of course, her bright blue eyes also alerted people to her danger. Chu Feng pushed her away. In any case, it wasn't up to a woman to tyrannically abuse others. How could he tolerate being suppressed to this extent? Unfortunately, all his efforts had failed. In the end, he could only chant the breathing technique scripture in an attempt to undo the seal. At the same time, he could divert his attention and prevent himself from sinking into this place. I'll maintain my indestructible Vajra body. Naturally, I won't have to worry about a group of nephews coming to my door for revenge and causing trouble for me. Chu Feng clenched his teeth with a resolute gaze. Unfortunately, everything that happened wasn't based on one's subjective will. In the end, his expression changed. 2 hours later, Chu Feng's entire body was covered in white mist. His body was glowing with sweat and his expression was odd. He couldn't help but look toward the direction of the ghost town to see if anything would rush out. He clenched his teeth and said, "My relatives who had their words carved on them, all of you better behave." That was because his indestructible Vajra body had been broken. At this time, a multicolored light appeared between heaven and earth. It wasn't just limited to the blue flames. At this moment, purple, silver, gold, and scarlet appeared and spread out from the radiant ghost town to this place. This caused the purgatory space to become increasingly restless. Their hearts trembled as all kinds of emotions erupted uncontrollably. "Sigh, it's very difficult to maintain the indestructible Vajra body," Chu Feng mumbled. Boom! At this moment, Qin Luoyin's body became increasingly resplendent as though a true immortal had awakened. Lustrous luster overflowed and became increasingly powerful. The death substitution talisman on her body was glowing, but it was almost unable to resist the reincarnation flames. The flames swept over and suppressed her. Her emotions fluctuated violently as her body was about to be devoured by the terrifying flames. The death substitution talisman was refined by saints using heavenly materials and earthly treasures as well as part of their own origin. Otherwise, how could it protect a person's life? As time went by, the saint's life origin energy would be whittled away. Only in this way could the protected person live on. This was an equivalent exchange, and the price of life origin energy was even higher. In order to protect the most outstanding disciple of the orthodoxy, the damning Pure Land was willing to invest a great deal of effort on Qin Luoyin. Bang! Finally, Chu Feng recovered and used the robbery induction breathing technique to break the restriction. He wanted to counterattack, but in the end, Qin Luoyin's body tensed up and a holy radiance blossomed. She immediately became vigilant. One had to admit that her intuition was too sharp. Moreover, she woke up in a split second at this moment. She hadn't severed her demonic self yet, but her true self had emerged to control her body and see through everything. In truth, she had always been like a bystander. She had long since known what had happened, but she had no way to stop it. Now, her beautiful and flawless face instantly changed color. She raised her palm and slapped towards Chu Feng, wanting nothing more than to kill him with a single palm. "I'm the victim." Chu Feng naturally wouldn't resign himself to death. The worst had happened. The other party had regained consciousness, and he did everything he could to resist. He grabbed Qin Luoyin's arms and waist and smashed his head against her lustrous forehead with great force. In the blink of an eye, he felt as though his head had split open and he was seeing stars. This was very sudden, and so was Qin Luoyin. After waking up slightly, she withdrew from the hypnotic state. She was no longer 2 realms above Chu Feng and was only 1 realm away. Her vision turned dark and she almost fainted from the impact. Her forehead was too painful. The two rolled about as Chu Feng rammed into her continuously. "You shameless bastard, I'll tear you into 10,000 pieces." Qin Luoyin flew into a rage out of humiliation. The current situation between the two was too awkward. Her battle clothes had long since disappeared and her entire body was aching. Especially her forehead, which had been smashed open. Chu Feng was fighting with his life on the line. He wanted nothing more than to smash both of their heads at the same time. This was a method of mutual destruction. It was for self-preservation. That was because, as far as he knew, Qin Luoyin was 2 realms higher than him. He didn't know that the other party wasn't as powerful after exiting the hypnotic state. The two rolled back and forth and Qin Luoyin was on the verge of collapse. She was a goddess-level character who walked the starry skies and was admired by countless young evolvers. Yet, such a thing had happened today. The most excessive thing was that the two of them were still entangled at this moment. She was extremely angry and her face was flushed red. She really wanted to kill the other party immediately. Luoyin, where are you? All of a sudden, an anxious shout rang out from the sky. A beam of light shot out and the sky seemed to be torn apart. The voice came from the outside world. The purgatory space had been opened by someone. Martial Granduncle! Qin Luoyin cried out in surprise. She revealed a joyous expression, but the current situation caused her expression to change. She was about to go crazy from shame and indignation. The saint of the damning Pure Land was pleasantly surprised. Luoyin, there are reincarnation flames everywhere below. We don't dare investigate. Come up yourself. Apparently, the people above didn't know what was happening here. They didn't dare probe with their spiritual power for fear of being destroyed. Chi! A waterfall descended, descending in this direction. Quick, this is our sect's supreme treasure, the immortal binding rope. Come up quickly. Even it can't stay here for long. Once the reincarnation flames erupt, everything will be destroyed. The saint's anxious voice came from the sky. Qin Luoyin struggled fiercely and erupted with divine light. She used all her energy to break free from Chu Feng. In truth, Chu Feng was very excited when he saw the void split open. But after hearing the damning Pure Land saint's voice, his heart turned cold and he loosened his grip. He didn't want to go up with her. Otherwise, he would definitely die. Bang! All of a sudden, Qin Luoyin struck Chu Feng with her palm. At the same time, she rushed up and grabbed the dazzling immortal binding rope. She flew up at top speed. Along the way, Qin Luoyin turned back and gazed at Chu Feng. Then, she put on a battle robe and rushed up along the immortal binding rope. Chu Feng's expression was uncertain as he stared at her back. I'm telling you, you can't give birth. Go to hell. This was Qin Luoyin's final reply. Chu Feng muttered to himself, those relatives don't act recklessly. Then, he sighed. How was he going to get out of this purgatory? There'll be a way. Wait until I get out. I'll surprise you all. He firmly believed that he would be able to escape very soon. At the end of the path of reincarnation, in the reincarnation cave on the other shore, a young Taoist was crying loudly. Goddamn it, who stole my fortune? Don't let me know, or else I'll tangle with you for the rest of my life. Ugh. I can't always stay here and not reincarnate. I found some fortune. Sigh, I should just go on my way and try to find a good family. Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, damn you. This Tao Grandpa is going to reincarnate with my memories. Just you wait, my great enemy. I will find you. Unless you happen to be my biological father in my next life, this Tao Grandpa will definitely beat you to death. No, even if you're related to me by blood, I'll still settle some debts with you. Goddamn it, you're the most hateful. How dare you trick me? Just you wait. Chapter 6:12. Outside of the Kunlun mountain range, the spatial crack was large and dark. At the same time, it was spewing out blue flames, causing all living beings in the area to tremble in fear. Qin Luoyin rushed out with a swoosh. She was wearing a long dress that fluttered in the wind, outlining the curves of her slender and perfect figure. She was peerlessly beautiful. Oh God, that's Fairy Qin. She's escaped and is still alive after more than a month. This is a miracle. The most famous goddess in the starry skies has reappeared, and she's completely unharmed. It looks like she's made a stunning return after sending Demon Chu to his grave in the purgatory. There were many people in this area. Apparently, the Kunlun area was bustling with noise and excitement. There seemed to be a grand meeting being held here. Qin Luoyin had reappeared at this moment. She was tall, graceful, and her skin was fair, exquisite, and sparkling. She possessed the golden ratio, and was much stronger than the so-called nine heads body. She was peerless and peerless. At such a time, she suddenly appeared again. Her lustrous purple hair hung down naturally, rippling with light. Her lustrous face had a pair of sparkling eyes, her nose was high, and her lips were moist and sexy. After rushing out, she stepped through the void like a fairy. Now, she was wearing a snow-white dress and looked exceptionally otherworldly. She was like a fairy of the moon with peerless grace. Now that she wasn't wearing a mask, everyone could see her delicate and peerless countenance. Her entire being was incomparably ethereal and carried with it an aura of the heavens and earth. Boom! This place was boiling. Following which, the news spread through the starry skies and caused a huge earthquake. Countless young evolvers from various races were astonished, then cried out in surprise and cheered. One could imagine how popular Qin Luoyin was. She was worthy of her title as one of the most moving goddesses in the world. Quick, use the heavenly eye and capture a close-up view of Fairy Qin Luoyin. Ask her to tell us the details of her trip to the purgatory. In the blink of an eye, all the platforms and interstellar media in the starry skies became busy. They all wanted to obtain first-hand information and get close to this peerless beauty. Qin Luoyin was very used to the feeling of being the center of attention. Even though she was in a terrible mood and was gnashing her teeth at Chu Feng, she immediately became calm and collected after breaking free. She carried an ethereal aura and transcended the mortal world. She concealed it very well. Right now, she was calm and unperturbed, still the goddess of the past. Her entire body was releasing holy radiance, her skin like ice and bones like jade, making others feel ashamed of their inferiority. The outside world was in an uproar, and the various races in the starry sky were in heated discussion. At this moment, countless gazes were cast toward Qin Luoyin. It could be said that she was the center of attention. Everyone had a favorable impression of her and was full of praises. At the same time, within the space of purgatory, Chu Feng was cursing. His situation was getting more and more difficult. This area was no longer limited to blue flames. Gold, silver, purple, and scarlet flames appeared. The true reincarnation flame appeared and began to purify the space. That girl who loves to daydream won't be called a pure and holy fairy after she goes out, right? Chu Feng mumbled. He was trying to guess the situation outside. He reckoned that Qin Luoyin would still be the goddess in the hearts of the young generation of all races in the universe if the matter here wasn't exposed. She would still be peerless in style and could walk proudly in the world. In truth, the outside world was even livelier than he had imagined. The starry skies were shaken by the news of Fairy Qin's success in slaying the demon. They were talking about her divine, flawless, and peerless beauty. She was the most stunning goddess in the starry skies. She might become the mother of my child. You guys can worship her as much as you want. Chu Feng was in a bad mood as he muttered to himself to vent the resentment in his heart. In the end, Qin Luoyin successfully escaped while he was trapped here. The storm of goddesses was indeed unfolding in the outside world. More and more people understood the news, and countless people were discussing this matter. Demon Chu was dead and the holy fairy Qin had returned proudly. This became the biggest news and shook the starry skies. The damning Pure Land Saintess had arrived. She was quite satisfied at first and revealed a smile as she looked at the most outstanding descendant of her orthodoxy. However, her expression changed very quickly and became stiff. Luoyin, you, come with me. Martial Grandaunt, how did you enter Earth's main space? Qin Luoyin was shaken. A heaven illuminator ancestor helped me descend with a powerful spiritual seed. It's not my true body. Even so, our damning Pure Land paid a great price for this. You, at this time, the saintess stared at Qin Luoyin and couldn't say anything else. There was shock and fury in the depths of her eyes. She was about to explode. Martial Grandaunt, what's wrong? Qin Luoyin asked. Even though she was in a bad mood, she was quite gentle and smiled sweetly at the saintess. There's a bruise on your chest under your collar. What kind of scar is that? At this time, the damning Pure Land's saintess transmitted telepathically. She was incomparably fierce and pained at the same time. Qin Luoyin's body stiffened. She knew she had been discovered. Is that brat still alive? The damning Pure Land's saintess transmitted telepathically and interrogated her directly. He didn't escape, Qin Luoyin replied. That's good. He's dead for sure. Now that the reincarnation flames have erupted, anyone who goes in will die. The damning Pure Land saintess nodded, but the anger in her heart didn't diminish. She hated Chu Feng to the core and really wanted to cut him into 8 pieces. Then, she pulled Qin Luoyin away and covered the two with light to prevent others from peeping. She said, "Come with me quickly. We're going to seek the most precious divine fruit to baptize your corporeal body and recover completely." In the Earth space, Chu Feng was experiencing a great calamity. Multicolored lights throbbed and the reincarnation flames spread. This kind of terrifying flame was many times more intense than before. Moreover, as time went on, it seemed as though the heaven and earth were about to be destroyed and completely burned. It was becoming more and more terrifying. He knew that he would have been burned to ashes if he didn't have the stone box in hand, and if it wasn't for the mountain and river diagram emitting a sparkling luster to protect him. These flames lasted for a full 3 days. The longer it went on, the more terrifying it became. Chu Feng reckoned that even saints would be turned to ashes on the last day. He deeply realized that the stone box was too extraordinary. There were dozens of golden runes on the side of the mountain and river diagram. It was simply heaven-defying, and could resist the reincarnation flames. He actually survived unscathed. 3 days was enough for him to recover. Qin Luoyin had given him a palm at the last moment before he left. His injuries weren't light at first, but he had already circulated the robbery induction breathing technique to heal them. The entire land was desolate. After 3 days, the entire space had been purified and turned into a quiet and desolate land. Chu Feng seemed to have experienced an apocalyptic calamity. He was the only one who had survived and endured the reincarnation flame's purification. He was one with heaven and earth. He felt as though there were countless spirits in this space being ferried to the radiant city of death and stepping onto the path of reincarnation. The world was silent. This was a special feeling. It was as though he had traversed through the ages and was left alone in this world. He watched the world collapse and the universe rise and fall until the next reincarnation. Chu Feng shook his head to get rid of this emotion. He searched carefully among the ashes for a way out because he wanted to leave this place alive. At this moment, the outside world was incomparably lively. On Earth, peerless young experts were contending for hegemony. Earth had become a hot spot for battles that attracted worldwide attention. That was because the origin magnetic sacred physique and the divine glass golden body had appeared. Next, the immortal destiny physique had also shocked the world. There were also other peerless geniuses who had descended upon Earth to contend with Ying Wudi, Yuan Shiqing, and the Tao Child. They wanted to rewrite the rankings of the strongest young experts in the universe. This caused a huge commotion. That was because Ying Wudi, Su Qingxian, Yuan Shiqing, and the Tao Child had come to Earth to watch the battle between Chu Feng and Qin Luoyin. In the end, their presence here attracted those peerless physiques. This was astonishing because the origin magnetic sacred physique and the immortal destiny physique could suppress an era. Now they had appeared one after another. Some people said that they came from a broken universe in the primal chaos and didn't belong to this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have appeared together at once. This made people even more astonished. At the same time, they were looking forward to the competition between peerless young experts to see who was stronger and who was weaker. Fairy Qin has returned. It's said that she was reborn and became even more powerful after her serious illness. Will she once again blossom with extraordinary splendor? Oh, what a pity! Demon King Chu was also very powerful, but he died in the purgatory. Fairy Qin returned alive and Chu Feng was buried in the purgatory of Kunlun. This is enough to prove everything. He was very powerful, but in the end, he fell. After more than a month, People felt rather emotional when they mentioned Chufeng again. Within the purgatory of Kunlun, Chufeng was searching. His body was covered in ashes as he muttered to himself, "I seem to have discovered an ancient road. Could this be an escape route left behind by the forebears? I have a strong premonition." Several days passed by in the blink of an eye. He walked through a spatial crack and saw the skeletons of the forebears as well as the gigantic remains of ineffable beasts. His killing intent surged. At the same time, in the starry skies, an ineffable speck of light that even saints couldn't sense appeared. He was puzzled and doubtful. Where am I? Is this still my original universe? This was the young Taoist from the reincarnation cave. Many days ago, he clenched his teeth and rushed out of the reincarnation cave to undergo a transformation of life and reincarnate. Afterward, he felt that he had entered a mother's body. It was very warm here, and he was just a speck of light. He was enveloped and protected by a special mist he had found in the reincarnation cave. "Oh, I'm not even an infant, but because I have the memories of my previous life, my will appeared first. Now I'm in the body of my mother?" He was a bit unsure because his previous magical power and divine abilities had all disappeared and could no longer be used. He felt that he was waiting for a new life in the primal chaos, waiting to grow and be born into the world. The most terrifying thing is in the womb. Once the infant body is formed, my consciousness might be clouded. This is also the mystery of the womb. After birth, there will be a period of muddle-headedness. At that time, I'll be like an ordinary infant, unable to remember everything and temporarily lose myself. This is very troublesome and might last for 3 years. No, I have to break out of this situation. Afterward, he was horrified because he discovered that there was an ineffable energy surging out from the mother's body. It wanted to refine this region and purify everything here. What's going on? It's like the purification of the reincarnation space. Heavens, I've just reincarnated. Could it be that I'm going to encounter an accident? Is my mother being attacked? The young Taoist was terrified and immediately became flustered and exasperated. He felt that he was too unlucky. Before long, he discovered that the special mist surrounding him had taken effect. It prevented him from being purified and killed. Could it be that the fortune I found in the reincarnation cave is so heaven-defying that it's not weaker than the primal chaos violet chi or the primordial immortal light? Ha ha! The Taoist laughed strangely. Afterward, he quickly found out what had happened through the mist. He was immediately dumbfounded and wanted to stomp his feet and curse. "This is a fraud, what kind of mother did I meet? Is she refining me and trying to destroy me? God damn it, why am I so unlucky?" Afterward, he let out an odd cry because another wave of energy surged in to destroy him and everything here. Me. I met an immoral person in the reincarnation realm who stole my opportunity and fortune. That's one thing. Now I've encountered an unreliable mother who's too fierce. She wants to destroy me with her own hands. Why didn't you give birth to me? I want to cry. This is the most tragic thing in the world. If I was given another chance, I wouldn't have reincarnated. The young Taoist cursed again and again. He was so angry that he wanted to stomp his feet. Unfortunately, he didn't have feet at the moment. Immeasurable heavenly deity, your grandpa. I can't die. I must fight to the end. Even if you're my mother in this life, we still have to have a good talk. I vow to fight to the end. I must be born. Afterward, the Taoist wanted to cry and curse at the same time. He even used the mist to resist. He wasn't willing to admit defeat and wouldn't lower his head to fate. I'm tenacious. Before I'm born, I'll fight with this unreliable young mother first. Oh my, here we go again. God damn it, I'll fight you to the death. God damn it, I'm not convinced even if you're my mother. I'll fight you to the death. Outside, there was a woman of unmatched beauty. She was originally very calm, but now she was stunned and frowned. What was going on? She couldn't refine the vitality in her stomach? Her flawless and beautiful face emitted a divine radiance. Then, she began to refine it again. Naturally, she wouldn't give up just like that. Immeasurable heavenly deity, your grandpa's life is so bitter. I have to fight with my young mother even before I'm born. I #yen %. Goddamn it, I'm angry. Are you still my mother? I'll fight you to the death. Brothers and sisters, please support the Holy Ground at the beginning of the month if you have tickets. Chapter 6:13. Chu Feng was very tired as he moved forward alone in the crack in the void. He searched for many days without rest and found some clues, but he still couldn't find the final door of life. The world was pitch black, especially in this place. The spatial cracks were so strange that one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them as they devoured all light. If it wasn't for Chu Feng's fiery eyes, he wouldn't have been able to see anything. Moreover, this place even isolated spiritual exploration. There's something going on. Suddenly, Chu Feng became somewhat excited. He felt that this spatial crack was unstable and fluctuating. Perhaps it was connected to the outside world. The most direct evidence was that there were corpses here that hadn't been completely purified by the reincarnation flames. This meant that this place wasn't the true purgatory space. This was a void crack region, so there might very well be a flaw, a door leading to the outside world. After all, he had found this place based on the clues left behind by the ancient. Back then, there must have been many people searching for a way to escape. This definitely wasn't the work of one person but the result of the efforts of many generations of experts. Along the way, he made other discoveries. Some ancients had the ability to tear apart space, but they left behind spiritual imprints to warn the latecomers that this place was different and too difficult. Using brute force would cause the reincarnation flames to purify this world. This should be the corpse of a Western silver dragon. Along the way, he found another colossus with a divine aura that surpassed the golden Arhat level. Its flesh wasn't decaying and its scales were still shining with silver splendor. If this was on Earth, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a god. Could it be here? Chu Feng revealed an astonished expression as he sensed the wind. It was different from other places. It was as if there was a deep passageway here from which cold wind was gushing out. Next, he revealed a joyful expression. There were obvious traces in the spatial crack. Giant beasts had occupied this place, and people had lived here for a long time. This place was a bit strange. Following the spatial crack, he entered a place with complicated terrain. The absolute darkness here devoured all light. Even the occasional supreme life form like the remains of the golden crow couldn't emit light in this area. It was as if they had entered a cosmic black hole. The more this was so, the more Chu Feng looked forward to it. That was because he had indeed sensed a fresh aura in the wind. This made him somewhat excited. Could it be that he was really going to go out? If there was a passage between this place and the outside world, it would indeed be heaven-defying. How did the ancestors do it? It grew darker and darker. Chu Feng could feel some of the energy within his body leaking out. Then, the gentle breeze also gradually died down. This place once again fell into absolute darkness and deathly silence. Then, Chu Feng felt that he had entered a man-made stone wall. He walked along a long path, as if he was walking on a dark path that led to hell. It was incomparably cold. The ground was descending, and the feeling of being in the crack of the void was disappearing. It went all the way down into the depths of the earth. Cold, darkness, and silence became the eternal theme, making people unable to feel the passage of time. At first, in this silent place, Chu Feng could hear his own footstep. Then, he heard his own heartbeat. Finally, in the darkness, he heard the sound of his own blood flowing. All of this was because this place was too quiet. Even the sound of a pin dropping wasn't enough to describe it. All he could feel was his own body. Suddenly, in the absolute darkness, a glossy green ball of ghostly fire appeared in front of Chu Feng. It was too sudden, and he didn't even have time to react. He almost crashed into it. It was like a black hole, and yet a ball of ghostly fire suddenly appeared in mid-air. It was too sudden, and he didn't have time to react. He held the violet heavenly thunder crystal in his hand, and almost smashed it out. He himself retreated, maintaining his calm, ready to erupt at any time. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a piece of bone. There was no flesh or blood, and the bone was covered with tiny cracks. It had long fingernails, and now it was entirely glossy green. It was burning as it floated in mid-air. What kind of situation was this? A piece of bone could actually float in this place without any spiritual fluctuations? A look of suspicion appeared on Chu Feng's face, and he became cautious. Chu Feng circled around the burning piece of bone, avoiding the glossy green ball of fire. He walked forward and then discovered a smooth path. It seemed to have been repaired by someone, and there were even stone steps. This made him even more excited. He had probably arrived at a crucial location. However, along the way, he saw even more bones, such as skulls and vertebrae. They were all very large, and he didn't know what creature they belonged to. They floated in mid-air, emitting glossy green ghostly fire as they burned. This definitely wasn't caused by the phosphorus on the bones. It was different from the ghostly fire in the graveyard. Chu Feng was scared out of his wits. This place made him feel increasingly cold, and he was emitting cold air from head to toe. The floating spinal ghosts and skulls were like lamps in the netherworld, embellishing the path of death. He came to a stone room. There were no bones here, but there was a ghostly fire. It originated from a sinister skull that was hanging in mid-air. The neck had been broken off, and it was dripping with blood. This was the skull of a ferocious beast, and it was as big as a millstone. Chu Feng had never seen such a thing before. Its head and face were covered in green scales, but between the gaps of the scales, there were many green needle-like hairs. He couldn't tell what race it was, and it died horribly. Its eyes were wide open, as if it had experienced the most terrifying thing before its death. It was suspected that it had been scared to death. After its pupils dilated, its facial expression froze in that instant. It was incomparably terrifying. Chu Feng shivered and avoided the floating skull. He was extremely fearful. How did it die? Could there be other dangers here? Then, he saw a person in the corner. He was as dry as firewood, emaciated, and his entire body was shriveled like a living skeleton. He leaned against the corner, as if he had retreated because of fear. His eyes were wide open in his sunken eye sockets, and his face was filled with malevolence and fear. It was as if he had been scared to death. This place was too strange. It was suspected to be full of danger and uncertainty. Then, Chu Feng saw some words on the stone wall. They were left behind by the withered man who had retreated to the corner. Chu Feng stared at them and read them in detail. He had studied for a period of time through the photon computer, but he wasn't very familiar with the common language of the starry skies. However, he could roughly read the words and understand their meaning. We can also be considered almighty characters. Who would have thought we would meet such a miserable end after falling into the purgatory? Even Zhao Qiankuan couldn't endure the reincarnation flames and was crushed into powder by the 6 types of reincarnation flames. We avoided the maelstrom area and luckily escaped here. The description was very simple. It didn't even mention their own identities or how they had drifted here. My attainments in domains are exceedingly high. How can I be willing to fall here? I followed the path of our predecessors and decided to lay down a heaven-connecting domain with a few good friends to open up the void and escape from this place. The words recorded their determination and also mentioned that this place had been discovered and excavated by earlier ancestors. There was an even more ancient and primitive domain that was connected to the great crack in the void. At the same time, There was also a warning from even more ancient predecessors that this place was very evil and that it was easy to die. Moreover, using too much energy might cause one to die even faster. We were very fortunate to enjoy the fruits of our predecessors' labor. This old man laid down a peerless domain and, with the help of a spatial expert like the Void Rat, we finally connected this place and opened up a path of life. However, the Great Terror also arrived. At this point, Chu Feng felt his hair stand on end and a true chill ran down his back. He suddenly turned around, but it was very cold and no one had appeared. Then, he looked down suspiciously to read the words again. We used the domain to connect a mine. It's pitch black and boundless. This should only be a small section of the mine. Even our ancestors hadn't excavated this place, so we don't know which era it was left behind. We were so excited that we couldn't control ourselves and thought we had escaped with our lives. But this pitch-black pit also belongs to this place and is within a crack in the void. We don't know which era this was left behind by the ancients or what they're excavating. In the end, the domain giant and the Void Rat didn't pay any attention to this unfathomably deep mine. Instead, they continued to connect along the predetermined path. Finally, we succeeded. We borrowed a small section of the black pit to pass through the boundary wall and see the scenery outside. This place should be the 11th planet in the universe. We found a stone tablet not far from the outside world. We can finally escape. We'll be recorded in the annals of history for actually escaping the land of reincarnation. Then, there were frightening words on the ground. The hand that had carved them was probably trembling. Disaster has appeared. The Great Terror has arrived. The words became disorderly at this point and made one's hair stand on end. Half of the Void Rat's head suddenly disappeared. It was drenched in blood and died mysteriously. A cold aura pervaded the air and filled every inch of space. It made one's hair stand on end and one's scalp go numb. Chu Feng felt the cold aura at the same time as he read these records. All the pores on his body opened up and he felt a chill from head to toe. It was as though he was experiencing everything that was recorded. He quickly turned back with the stone box in his hand. He was too scared here. But he didn't see anything. There was no one behind him. But why did he feel as though there was something sticking to his back? At this moment, the stone box in his hand emitted a faint light which helped him calm down a little. Old friend Yuan Zhen exploded into pieces on the spot. For some reason, his flesh and blood seemed to have been sucked dry by something in an instant. Only his bones were left, but his head retained its flesh and blood. Moreover, there was fire on both his bones and head. It was oily green. As he read up to this point, Chu Feng felt that something was wrong and the chill on his back grew even more intense. The others also died without knowing why. It was as though they had seen the most terrifying thing before their deaths. This kind of scene happening in the dark mine is too terrifying. Chu Feng felt uneasy. Just what kind of place had he arrived at? Only Dao friend Mo Kong managed to escape. However, he went crazy the moment he reached the outside world. He clawed at all the flesh on his body and then ran away while screaming in fear. I don't know if he survived or not, but I feel that his ending wasn't too good. We are almighty beings, but in the end, not good. There's movement in that sealed passage. Something is about to come out. Could it be that it's finally my turn? I'm finished, I'm going to die. It's really coming. The records ended here and came to a screeching halt. Chu Feng felt a chill run through his entire body. Just what had they encountered? They had clearly dug out a passage to escape through the void, but in the end, they were almost completely annihilated. Chu Feng discovered that the person who had retreated to the corner and left behind a suicide note was looking at something behind Chu Feng in fear. This made him shiver. This time, he turned around and observed carefully. There was a giant rock on the stone wall that seemed to be blocking a path. It could be seen that the rock was tightly sealed and hadn't been pushed open. There shouldn't be any creatures coming over. But why did that domain research giant say that he was about to die after sensing something coming? In truth, he really did die in the end, and he died in extreme fear. Just what did he see at the last moment? Chu Feng stared at the stone. There was blood on it that hadn't dried up completely. It was the remnant blood of several almighty beings recounting their terrifying experiences. There's a path ahead that leads to the outside world. Moreover, the exit is on Earth. Chu Feng's eyes were blazing with excitement. But so many people had died here. This place was too strange and terrifying. How should he choose? Should he try? So many years have passed. Could it be that something bad has happened? Time should be able to erase everything. Perhaps this place won't be so strange anymore. Chu Feng consoled himself like this as he approached the giant rock. After all, there was someone who had escaped. Even though he was crazy, he still managed to leave the land of reincarnation. I really can't help it. Over a month has passed. How are Yellow Cattle, Old Black, and Ouyang Feng? How are my parents? Are the people from the outer realm targeting them? Chapter 6:14. Within the stone room, the sinister beast head was covered in green fur as hard as steel needles. Its expression was one of terror. The domain giant in the corner was also in the same state. Even at the moment of his death, his expression was one of extreme shock. Chu Feng circled around them and looked at them in great detail. He revealed a pensive expression. These two were powerhouses, so it was impossible for them to have been scared to death. It seemed that there was a great terror ahead. It was exceptionally strange. In the end, he arrived before the brown stone wall and stared at it. Should he move it or not? He really wanted to go back. He had been here for too long and felt uneasy. After the battle at Mount Kunlun, everyone thought he had died. One could imagine how his friends and family felt. He wanted to return and tell them that he was still alive. At the same time, he was worried about their safety. He was afraid that they would be found by people from the outer realm. That kind of scene made him tremble in fear. In the end, Chu Feng moved the giant stone away. Immediately, a large, pitch-black hole appeared. It was soundless and exceptionally quiet. The domain giant had hurriedly blocked the path, but in the end, he still died. It was too quiet. Was this the scene of the tragedy? It was pitch black inside, devoid of any sound, and there were no signs of danger. However, Chu Feng's expression was still solemn. He walked in with the diamond chakram in hand and was ready for battle. The main reason he dared to come in, apart from his eagerness to return, was because he had the stone box on him. He discovered that in this land of reincarnation, the mountain and river diagram on one side of the box could suppress one's soul and effectively suppress some strange things. For instance, he could enter and exit the giant millstone, walk to the end of the reincarnation path, and even sneak back. Otherwise, Chu Feng wouldn't have dared to act so casually. He had to be responsible for his own life. What would happen to his father and friends if he died? The black hole was filled with a deathly aura. Was this really the place where the strange and terrifying incident had taken place? Chu Feng walked in and merged into the darkness. It was at this moment that his body suddenly stiffened as a cold wind blew from behind him. Following which, he felt a chill on his neck as if someone was blowing air into it. Goosebumps appeared all over his body as if he had been electrocuted. He felt numb from head to toe, but his reaction was lightning fast. He suddenly turned around and smashed down with the diamond chakram. Who? He moved his body with a violent gust of wind, but there was nothing behind him. It was quiet as if nothing had happened. The cold wind had disappeared. Chu Feng's scalp went numb. How many years had passed? Looking at the carvings on the stone wall, Chu Feng deduced that it was at least tens of thousands of years ago. But the strangeness in the stone cave was still there? He thought that time could erase everything, but now it seemed that some things could exist forever, and even time could not cut them off. Come! Chu Feng shouted. He put away the diamond chakram and replaced it with a stone box. With the black talisman in his other hand, he strode forward once more. There was no sound in the cave, and it was even darker and more lifeless than the previous path. It made one's heart involuntarily rise with negative emotions. This was not a place suitable for the living. Along the way, Chu Feng's body was tense. He was ready to wield the black talisman and the stone box at any time to suppress the evil. After walking for a few hundred meters, the black hole became colder and colder. This tunnel was very long. Suddenly, Chu Feng felt another breath of air blowing at his neck. In an instant, his hair stood on end. Damn you! He couldn't help but cry out. It was too terrifying. If this thing attacked him, wouldn't his head fall to the ground? It was somewhat frightening to blow at his neck. How could the absolute darkness in this secret underground tunnel that had been silent for tens of thousands of years not make one's hair stand on end? Chu Feng didn't stop. He felt that if that thing could cut off his head, it wouldn't have waited until now. Perhaps the stone box on his body had played a great role. He walked forward quickly, wanting to charge through this path in one go and rush into earth. Suddenly, his scalp went numb because he felt as if an ice-cold hand had touched his scalp. He could feel the coldness through his hair. F***ck. Chu Feng let out a strange cry. This kind of experience was too terrible. Then, as soon as he opened his mouth, he felt as if someone was blowing yin qi toward his mouth. When Chu Feng felt it, he reacted by blowing in the opposite direction, and it was a fierce one. F***ck. The yin wind on the other side disappeared, leaving only a chill all over his body. Chu Feng felt a headache coming on. He hadn't expected to encounter such a strange thing after stepping on this path. Do you think I'm scared? When I was 4, I was already unrivaled in my generation. All the kids in kindergarten called me brother. Because of this, the older generation personally came and found my mother to suppress me. Who are you? Come out if you have the guts. Brother Feng, I'll talk to you today. Don't blow in wind for no reason. Come out if you have the guts. Chu Feng dilly-dallied to boost his courage. He wasn't afraid of opponents he could see, but he was too fearful of the unknown. He was now in purgatory, next to the land of reincarnation. Only the heavens knew what this long-lasting strangeness was. In the darkness, no one replied to him. It was deathly silent here, and the road was still very long. Chu Feng gritted his teeth and continued on his way. The hand holding the stone box was very strong and had turned slightly green. Evidently, his entire body was tense. Whoosh! Suddenly, a loud yin wind blew past and messed up Chu Feng's hair. He saw something from the side and quickly turned his head. In a trance, he saw a strand of hair with heavy yin qi. It had no body and then disappeared. I don't care what you are. Chu Feng let go of his legs and began to run forward. At the same time, he used the black talisman paper to draw randomly. Then, he felt that he had run into an even more sinister place. It was as if he had come to Yama's palace. He stopped and used his eyes of fire and gold to size up the place. This was a mine. Of course, he was just passing by. One side was as dark as the abyss of hell, and he couldn't see clearly. This shocked Chu Feng. This was the so-called main area of the mine. Even his eyes of fire and gold couldn't see through it. At this moment, he felt like his skin was about to split open. This was like a burial ground with countless lives buried in it. The thick yin qi covered the sky and earth, causing his heart to palpitate uncontrollably and his spirit to tremble. Forget it. Chu Feng didn't look in this direction anymore. Instead, he used the path in the mine to run forward. He knew that the exit was not far away. It was just up ahead. Ouch! Chu Feng let out a strange cry. He immediately flipped over, because just now, in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, something had appeared out of nowhere and tripped him. However, with a somersault, he stabilized his body and stopped in front of him. At this moment, he looked ahead. There seemed to be light at the end of the black tunnel. This meant that he was almost at the end and the exit was there. SSS. Suddenly, he heard someone behind him draw in a breath. Then, he felt a cold hand on his neck. F***CK. Chu Feng was flustered. He quickly dodged and used the stone box and black talisman paper to block the attack. However, this time, he felt terrible. Something was stuck to his back and he couldn't get rid of it. It was like a cold and gloomy aura, but also like a weightless person. Chu Feng felt his body getting heavier and stiffer. Someone was constantly blowing at his neck, and the cold hand was moving from time to time. Damn you! He was anxious. Even the stone box and black talisman paper couldn't suppress this thing. How strange was this? It was going to defy the heavens. In the end, he still couldn't get rid of it. In the end, Chu Feng stabilized and stopped struggling. In any case, it had already come to this. The other party hadn't killed him yet, so he wasn't in a hurry to get rid of this big problem. Chu Feng took out a treasured mirror he had seized from a certain divine son. Then, he looked into the mirror to see what was behind him. This wasn't an ordinary secret treasure. It could reflect spiritual bodies and so on. Then, Chu Feng's hair stood on end. His whole body was cold and numb from head to toe. He felt horrified. In the mirror, there was a black shadow on his back. It seemed to be a person with disheveled hair. It was glued to his body and didn't move at all. Whoosh! Suddenly, the black shadow's hair floated up and blew out a cold and gloomy aura. The treasured mirror in Chu Feng's hand cracked and was destroyed in an instant. Moreover, the broken mirror was dripping with blood. It was very terrifying. Chu Feng's hair stood on end. This was too damn terrifying and terrible. He was carrying something on his back. Perhaps with the stone box in hand, this strange thing couldn't harm him. But if he were to escape with this thing on his back, who knew when something unexpected would happen? After all, he couldn't always have the stone box in hand. What if he fell or accidentally put it down? This won't do. I have to get rid of this big problem. Chu Feng clenched his teeth and began to run back. He didn't want to carry this strange thing into Earth. If it couldn't hurt him and instead attacked the people around him, it would be too late for regret. Chu Feng ran all the way and finally returned to the stone room. However, he still felt something on his body even though it was very light. Moreover, he felt as if his neck was being hugged. Damn you! Unless you're a celestial immortal, I won't let you off. Chu Feng was extremely disgusted and at the same time felt increasingly terrifying. He paused for a moment in front of the domain giant's corpse and glanced at the carvings one last time. Afterward, Chu Feng left. After rushing out of the spatial crack, he ran all the way toward the city of death and rushed toward the land of light. He absolutely couldn't carry this ineffable existence out. He wanted to enter the city of death and crush it within the millstone. It didn't matter if it was a demonic lord or an immortal. He would crush it first. With a swoosh, Chu Feng jumped onto the city of death. He rushed all the way and finally arrived once again. At this time, there were still some areas in the city with reincarnation flames. When Chu Feng approached, he clearly felt his body become light as that strange thing disappeared. Afraid of the reincarnation flames? However, Chu Feng didn't dare to be careless and kept on running. This time, he took the initiative and walked right into the trap. He rushed onto the millstone and then jumped into the pile of corpses to grind himself. Although he felt that thing had left, he was still worried. He wanted to grind himself first. That thing is too powerful. It even dares to follow me into the city of death. What exactly is it? Chu Feng was scared. At this time, he looked down at himself and found that there were many marks on his body. For instance, there were child's palm prints, female claw marks, and others. When did these get left behind? He was dumbfounded. His body was densely covered in black marks, but they were all wiped clean after he wiped them with his hand. Damn! Chu Feng cried out in alarm. He himself didn't know how many attacks he had suffered. Apparently, it was the effect of the stone box to intimidate this group of evil. But in the end, it provoked a big one. It directly lay on his body, but it couldn't kill him. Chu Feng hugged the stone box tightly. Before long, he fell into the pool of blood with a plop and was crushed. The other corpses had all turned into meat paste. This time, he wasn't in the mood to explore the reincarnation path. Instead, he went back the way he came. Damn your grandpa, I didn't bring you here to crush you, nor did I send you to reincarnation. I'm already being extremely benevolent. Don't look for trouble with me again. After coming out from the millstone, Chu Feng wandered around the city to collect the reincarnation flame. In the end, he found that no secret treasure could collect it. It would be burned to ashes. The six-colored flame was too terrifying. In the end, Chu Feng took out the 3 seeds and used the stone box to collect them. He succeeded. A multicolored flame throbbed and didn't extinguish. I need to calm down. I'm not in a hurry to go. Next, Chu Feng went outside the city and stayed here for 2 days. He adjusted his body state, but that strange thing didn't come. This made him feel a bit more confident. Next, he cultivated here for 5 whole days without leaving. He allowed his body to reach its most powerful state and absorbed the fist imprints and sword intent in a frenzy. It's time to go. If that path can be taken, I can come back at any time and cultivate here. This is a rare holy land for cultivation. Next, Chu Feng walked the same path. This time, the pitch-black stone room was even more eerie. Along the way, there were things blowing at him from time to time. It was still as terrifying as before. However, he held the stone box in his hand and the 6-colored reincarnation flame throbbed in it. Nothing came to him. Finally, Chu Feng saw the light and approached the exit. He heaved a sigh of relief. He had succeeded. He had walked out of this strange path and was about to return to Earth. Alas, I can finally calm down. Chu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. However, at the next moment, cold lips appeared beside his ears and a faint sigh was uttered. Did I jinx it? Chu Feng almost jumped up. One had to know that even a group of powerhouses had died here. This thing was absolutely terrifying. At the same time, there were people in the starry sky who were alarmed. A young Taoist was fighting against the most famous goddess in the universe. This was a battle between mother and son. I'm really too miserable. Even if I want to live until the day I'm born, I have to fight so desperately. I have to pour out my heart and soul and do everything I can to fight. Most importantly, I'm fighting against the mother of this life. Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, damn you! The young Taoist was speechless and looked up at the sky. The more he spoke, the more he would cry. He really wanted to kill his way out of his mother's womb and find someone to reason with. How could they bully people like this? Ever since he stepped onto the reincarnation path, he had started to run into misfortune. His master didn't love him, his uncle didn't love him, and now even his mother, whom he had never met, wanted to destroy him. I really don't want to live anymore. The young Taoist was quite resentful. He really wanted to ask this mother what kind of hatred she had for him to be destroyed. He suspected that there was something wrong with his mother's body and that she wasn't fit to give birth. Otherwise, why would she always want to refine him to death? But when he brought out the special mist he had brought out from the reincarnation cave, he could clearly sense that this mother was very young. Her entire body was suffused with an abnormal divine light, which was the embodiment of an extraordinary physique. Her body's potential was boundless, and there was an astonishing origin in slumber. It was obvious that she had the potential to become a peerless overlord of a generation. Her physique was definitely not bad, so why was she still like this? It was like this for many days in a row. The young Taoist was about to collapse. His mother was too persistent and strong-willed. She was determined to get rid of him. At this moment, he was completely in tears. Damn it, who's coming to the rescue? Father, father of this life, I miss you. Where are you? I miss you very much. Come and save me. The Taoist couldn't take it anymore and wailed in his belly, wanting to ask for help. But if he knew who his father was and who had stolen his black talisman, he definitely wouldn't call him father. He would probably be so angry that he would be seething with anger. The space of purgatory, that strange path. In the darkness, Chu Feng shivered. Who's talking about me? Does anyone miss me? At this time, he had finally walked out of that terrifying area. After that faint sigh, nothing else appeared. He approached the exit and arrived at the land of light. He was about to enter Earth. I've finally returned alive. Everyone, we're about to meet again. The father and son were quite frightened and begged for a monthly ticket to help them calm down. Chapter 6:15. As Chu Feng neared the exit, his heart was filled with joy. He was finally going to be free. He had been trapped in the purgatory for so long, all alone. It was too cold and desolate. I'm back, he shouted and rushed towards the land of light. At the last moment, he didn't forget to be on guard. He was afraid that extreme joy would beget sorrow. He had experienced it not long ago when he heard someone sigh. It was truly frightening. Then, he saw a stone tablet erected in the land of light. On it were the words, Kunlun. Rumble. The air exploded. Chu Feng rushed out as fast as he could. The airflow he created turned into white mist. It was as though a mortal mist was boiling as he stood outside. He was very excited as he stepped on the muddy ground. He was completely free and couldn't help but want to shout. However, there seemed to be something staring at him from behind. He suddenly turned his head and looked behind him. It was a deep path, and the cave entrance was completely dark. It seemed to be devouring light and emitting strange yin-chi. Chu Feng saw a pair of large but timid eyes looking at him. It was a small figure. In the darkness, it looked like a 4- or 5-year-old girl. She was leaning against the stone wall and looking at him. He couldn't see her true appearance. Even the fiery eyes were helpless in this strange cave. Chu Feng had already experienced this before. That kind of gaze, was it actually timid? Chu Feng was dumbfounded. Then, he shuddered violently. He shook his head forcefully. He would never forget that strange thing. There was something blowing cold air at his back and touching his scalp with its hands. It was so creepy and creepy. In the end, Chu Feng chose to retreat and walked away step by step. Then, he saw that in the darkness, a pair of eyes appeared in the strange hole. The sclera and pupil were indistinguishable. The eyes were green in color and as big as lanterns. They were cold and emotionless, eerie and cold. What kind of creature was that? Chu Feng shivered and drew in a breath of cold air. He hadn't seen anything when he entered the strange place just now. In the end, he saw 2 pairs of eyes outside the cave. It was somewhat frightening. He turned around, no longer looking, and strode towards the stone stele in the distance. This was a dimensional space that wasn't very big. There was a tablet erected here that mentioned Kunlun and also Permith. Behind it were 2 small paths that led to 2 different places. There was a door of light there. This was a very small space that was connected to the outside world. Chu Feng decisively chose a path that led to the Kunlun Mountains. Back then, he had fallen into the purgatory from the Kunlun Mountains. Now, he wanted to escape from there. The other path was labeled as the other shore. Who knew where it led to? If he accidentally entered the end of the path of reincarnation again, he would be in big trouble. He walked to the end of the small path, and with a swish, he rushed out of the door of light. It was a door constructed of energy, and thus, he had truly left this strange place. I'm free, I'll say goodbye to purgatory. I Chu Feng am back. All my enemies should tremble in fear. Chu Feng laughed loudly because he smelled the fresh air. This was a smell he was familiar with, it had the aura of Kunlun. He had once lived here for a period of time. However, why was it a bit dim? Chu Feng was suspicious. Where had he arrived? This was the underground. Then, he saw a stone tablet that informed him that this was the underground of Kunlun. After stepping out of the purgatory, he could enter the human world through this. Chu Feng followed the underground path and walked upwards. Separated by the earth, he could already feel the exuberant vitality surging from the ground. At the same time, there was a type of supreme yang aura that covered the sky and earth. It was the complete opposite of the gloomy coldness of the strange place. He liked this kind of aura very much. Even the purgatory couldn't trap me. There's no need for help, I can escape by myself. I really admire myself more and more. I'm sitting cross-legged in the city of death, walking on the path of reincarnation, and leaving behind traces in the land of reincarnation. Even the strange pit can't stop me. It's simply difficult for the heavens to extinguish and the earth to bury me. Chu Feng was like a chatterbox. He hadn't spoken for more than a month. Now that he had escaped, he was endlessly cocky and incomparably narcissistic. However, he was met with tragedy. Just as he was shouting that even the heavens couldn't stop him, and that he had left his name on the path of reincarnation, a thunderbolt struck him with a boom, causing his entire body to emit white smoke. Oh my God, who the hell struck me with lightning? Are they tired of living? I've come back from hell. Then, with a boom, an even thicker bolt of lightning struck his body, causing him to spasm and tremble all over. The electric current was too strong, causing him to be drenched in blood. His skin and flesh were lacerated and then charred black. What's going on? Is there still justice in this world? I've actually been struck by lightning? Chu Feng was furious. At the same time, he trembled with fear. This lightning was terrifying enough to strike an evolver at the visualization level to death. He had been struck inexplicably. If it were anyone else, they would have definitely died. This lightning could blast someone at the same level as him into pieces. Boom, boom, boom. Next, lightning interweaved and descended in large amounts. They bombarded Chu Feng in the depths of the earth, covering him with bloodstains. His hair was disheveled and his face was black. Damn your grandpa, did I pretend to be 13? Just strike me. It seems. I've said a few more words. Could it be that there really is a bastard in the unseen world? But what does this have to do with you? Chu Feng was unconvinced and unconvinced. He had been in a good mood when he had just escaped, but as soon as he had returned, he was showered in the face with lightning. This was really too unscrupulous. Chu Feng didn't believe in heresy and was very unconvinced. He ferociously charged upwards, wanting to see what was going on. Then, his eyes went straight as he advanced along the underground path. He saw a few thick copper pillars above him, emitting a glaring radiance that was even more intense than the sun in the sky. Lightning descended from there. A large amount of lightning danced about and struck him until he wished he was dead. The lightning was too thick, and there were many spherical lightning balls that flew together. They transformed into an incomparably divine river of stars as they bombarded his body. He let out an odd cry and turned to run. This should be able to kill evolvers of higher realms. It was astonishingly powerful. God damn it! How unlucky! This is actually Kunlun's gate of hell. Chu Feng already knew where he was. He had really wrongly blamed the unseen existence. He had been struck into this state by the lightning drawn by a terrifying domain. Back then, when he had first come to Kunlun to find the two oxen, he had been schemed against by the Woodpecker King and lured into a forbidden area. That place could attract a lot of lightning and cause lightning strikes. This place was called the Gate of Hell. Moreover, the great demons of Kunlun had discovered a deep well near the Gate of Hell. There was a copper pillar within which the strength of the lightning could be controlled by moving it up and down. Chu Feng had run here and was close to the core of the gate of hell. Naturally, he would be struck by lightning. He was very unlucky. Being struck by lightning in this area was all too common. He simply wanted to cry but had no tears. Although he retreated again and again, the lightning simply couldn't stop after erupting. It covered him and struck him, flying with blood splattering in all directions. It seemed like it couldn't stop. Only after a long time had passed did the place become quiet. Chu Feng's entire body was charred black and had almost turned into a block of charcoal. Chu Feng was sure that even people one realm higher than him would die under this kind of lightning. Only an extremely small number of geniuses could resist it. This lightning was too terrifying. It was going to take one's life. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. Was this lightning domain arranged here to purify evil spirits? The ancients must have discovered the pitch-black cave in the underground space, and felt that there was something indescribably bizarre inside. It was simply too terrifying. As such, they sealed this place and applied the lightning domain to purify the abnormality. Fortunately, I didn't come into contact with the core area. Otherwise, wouldn't I have been blasted into dregs? Even so, Chu Feng was still unhappy. He had been struck by lightning for no rhyme or reason. It was too unlucky. But there was nothing he could do. He could only console himself and say, "I've just come out of purgatory. I'm using lightning to baptize my body. Yes, it can also be considered removing bad luck in case some evil spirits really follow me out." Chu Feng had picked up all kinds of spatial bracelets and many secret treasures in the distance. He had thrown them out just now because he was afraid they would be destroyed by the heavenly tribulation lightning. The six-colored flame was still burning in the stone box. It had no source and was actually not extinguished. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. He closed the stone box and stored the flame just like that. It might be of great use in the future. Afterward, he heard a clamor on the ground. It wasn't very clear, but he could vaguely hear it. Strange, is someone crossing a tribulation? Why is the underworld's gate so full of lightning? The scene is too terrifying. Could it be that some demon has come into being and the heavens have taken it in and struck it to ashes? When Chu Feng heard this, he secretly ground his teeth. Your whole family is the demon. I've defied the heavens and returned. When the time comes, you'll all be scared to death. But in the end, he endured it and didn't go out. If he really showed himself like this, he reckoned a group of saints would be shocked and come up with ideas to deal with him. This time, he definitely wouldn't let himself fall into a passive position. He needed to plan properly. There were many people on the ground discussing the strange events here and then other things. Oh, who cares if there's a demon or not? No matter how powerful it is, can it compare to the origin magnetic sacred physique? It can suppress all enemies. If there really is a demon here, it will be subdued. The immortal destiny physique is the real deal. It's like the reincarnation of a true immortal. It only needs one easy strike to kill a genius of the same realm. Who can compete with it? Chu Feng heard the outside world discussing some powerful physique. He roughly understood what had happened. Earth had become a place where peerless geniuses fought for hegemony. The origin magnetic sacred physique, divine glass golden body, immortal destiny physique, and innocuous divine physique had all appeared. They wanted to compete with Ying Wudi, the demon race's crown prince Yuan Shiqing, and the Tao race's Daoist. An odd expression appeared on Chu Feng's face. His heart wasn't calm. He had studied this place for a long time and found that this lightning domain was extraordinary. It couldn't be broken in a short time, and the people on the ground didn't disperse. He didn't want to be struck by lightning again, so he retreated first and returned to the dimensional space. Then, he looked at another road marked with the Permitha realm. "I'll just take a look and walk all the way to the end," Chu Feng said to himself. Then, he went on his way and passed through a door of light. In an instant, it was as if the starry sky had turned upside down. This surprised him because this was a spatial teleportation domain. Where was he going? He was somewhat worried. He didn't want any accidents to happen since he had just returned to Earth. The next moment, he was a little stunned because he had arrived at a desert. It was very desolate under the setting sun, but he found it somewhat familiar. It looked very much like the desert in the western region of Earth. The next moment, he heard rustling sounds. Then, a faint blue light appeared everywhere as blue spider lilies grew out of the desert one after another. This scene was too familiar. Chu Feng was sure that he had directly broken free and returned to Earth. He had come to the desert he had once walked through. Before the upheaval, he had once set out on the road alone and came to the western region to relax. He had come here before heading to Mount Kunlun and had seen spider lilies blooming everywhere. Now, he had experienced this scene again. This pollen. Chapter 6:16. Solitary smoke rose in the great desert, and the sun set over the long river. Under the setting sun, the vast desert gave off a feeling of desolation and desolation beyond the Great Wall. However, in the blink of an eye, there were blue spider lilies everywhere. It was so sudden, and the blue petals in the desert were sparkling and translucent. It was mesmerizing and unreal. Thin smoke rose and mists pervaded the air. Everything was blue, as if a mysterious country was opening up. An ancient world appeared, connecting with the great desert. Chu Feng stood there in a daze. He was shaken by the reappearance of the scene he had seen before. At this moment, the red sun on the horizon had turned blue. It was extremely demonic as it hung on the horizon and emitted a faint blue light. Even though he had experienced it once, Chu Feng was still deeply shocked when he saw the endless blue spider lilies growing in the arid desert. How did they form? Things were different now. He had the fiery eyes and looked carefully. As the blue pollen rose and the mist rose, he saw an ancient land that was about to connect with the desert in reality. It wasn't an illusion. When the spider lilies bloomed, they actually opened up an ancient land. A mysterious country that had experienced the baptism of time appeared in the distance. Chu Feng drew in a breath of cold air. He couldn't see this back then. Had he missed something, or had he avoided a great disaster? He didn't know. He didn't want to complicate things. If it was any other day, he would have a strong desire to explore. However, after experiencing the purgatory space for more than a month, he only wanted to return as soon as possible and meet his parents and friend. That was because he was afraid that if he explored now, he might sink into that ancient land. Chu Feng revealed an astonished expression. The pollen dispersed and a blue mist rose into the air, forming a clear outline of a certain scenery in the air. It was a pontoon bridge that connected the ancient nation to where he was. What was going on? Was it leading him on the road? Chu Feng didn't move. He stood there quietly and stared at the blue mist and the ancient land in front of him. He smelled a faint fragrance. Was it the fragrance of spider lilies? Not all pollen is beneficial to the human body and promotes the evolution of the body. Back then, I encountered this overwhelming sea of blue flowers, but I didn't feel any effect. Chu Feng frowned. He was very cautious because this blue resurrection lily was too strange. The timing of its appearance caused him to be especially cautious. Chu Feng had once mentioned the blue spider lilies to Yellow Cattle. At that time, Yellow Cattle had told him with a solemn expression that there was actually only one blue spider lilies. The others were all transformed from its root. Moreover, it was rumored that the blue spider lily was related to an ancient and dazzling powerhouse. The water in this matter was very deep. Following that, the spider lilies became more and more resplendent, and the pollen turned into a thick blue mist. It was practically like water ripples, and it was so dense that it simply couldn't disperse. At this moment, the bridge formed by the pollen blue mist was becoming more and more realistic. There were even all kinds of patterns on it, including divine birds, immortal beasts, and so on. Additionally, one figure after another appeared in the void. They were also formed by the blue mist and gathered around a chariot pulled by 8 blue Qilins. They came along the bridge as if they wanted to receive Chu Feng and board the chariot. Chu Feng drew in a breath of cold air. This was truly evil. Was this real? He even suspected that he had entered a dream. The blue mist could actually evolve into this when the spider lilies bloomed and the sky was filled with pollen. Was this an invitation to set foot in that ancient country? Chu Feng revealed an astonished expression. His spirit was about to leave his body and float to the bridge in the air. At the same time, the divine beast chariot stopped as if waiting for him to board. His spirit was about to leave his body? He was terrified. He definitely couldn't go. Chu Feng circulated the robbery induction breathing technique to protect his spirit. In the blink of an eye, it had become one with his physical body and was distributed in every inch of his flesh. They blended together and couldn't be separated. At the same time, he took out the stone box and held the black talisman in his hand. He was ready for battle. It was somewhat terrifying just now. He had almost lost his spirit and was almost taken to the bridge in the air. Only heaven knew what would happen if his spirit left his body here. According to folklore, there are some ghost messengers in the netherworld who are in charge of hooking souls and receiving the souls of the dying. Could it be that I've encountered such a thing? Chu Feng was shaken. That can't be right. My vital signs are vigorous. Even if there are those creatures and those strange lands, what right do they have to capture my spirit? Chu Feng's eyes were profound. Afterward, he thought of another folklore. The powerhouses of the netherworld would occasionally invite famous characters from the Yang realm to a banquet. They were inviting their spirits and spiritual bodies to attend the banquet. An odd expression appeared on Chu Feng's face. Could it be that he had encountered such a thing? Could it be that a giant was about to hold a banquet in the mysterious old land where the spider lilies were and was inviting him? He was bewildered because such a thing was unimaginable. One had to know that he didn't believe in such things before the upheavals and treated them all as ghosts and demons on paper. But now, he was actually experiencing such a thing. Was there really such a strange place? Did the netherworld really exist in this world? He had been to the land of reincarnation and witnessed the radiant city of death. Now, a strange netherworld-like world had appeared. This caused his emotions to fluctuate and he was astonished. The land of reincarnation and the netherworld should be the same place in Chu Feng's eyes. But now, it seemed that they were related but also had strange differences. He hadn't expected to encounter such a thing as soon as he came out from the land of reincarnation. Chu Feng pondered. It seemed that he really was fated with reincarnation and the netherworld. He recalled that it was here that he had encountered a field of red spider lilies and picked up the stone box at the foot of the mountain when he went to Kunlun. Now, it was proven that one side of the stone box was related to the land of reincarnation. There was no need to talk about that mountain and river diagram. It was too mysterious. There were actually dozens of golden runes on that side of the stone box. They were exactly the same as the runes inside the millstone of the land of reincarnation. Now, he had come out from the land of reincarnation and arrived at the place where the spider lilies had bloomed. This was like a reincarnation, a cycle. Back then, he had left here and now he was returning from there. At this moment, the blue mist in the air became denser. It formed a bridge that led from here all the way to the mysterious old land. 8 blue Qilins cried out in the air, shaking their heads and wagging their tails. There were even some people singing and dancing, their bodies glowing with blue light. Chu Feng stabilized his spirit and didn't let his spirit leave his body. He didn't want to be taken away like this for no reason. Who knew what would happen? But at this moment, he was astonished. A wave of divine power came from the bridge and pulled him into the air. This time, it wasn't his spirit that left his body but his physical body that rose up and landed on the blue mist bridge. Entering the netherworld with his physical body? In the legends, this was the embodiment of one's physical body becoming a saint. In other words, one's yang energy was dense and their spirit and flesh were inseparable. They didn't fear the corrosion of the netherworld and could enter. "Io!" Chu Feng cried out strangely. He had just escaped from the purgatory and was far away from reincarnation. Now, he was about to enter a place suspected to be the netherworld. This made him arch his body and prepare to flee. "Little friend, since you've come, why not attend the banquet?" The blue mist surged and a voice traveled over, calming his restless heart. Next, he found himself sitting on the blue Qilin war chariot. His body of flesh and blood was actually able to sit on it? He had been struck by lightning quite badly at the gates of hell. His body was still in intense pain and there were some scorch marks on it. Now that he was nearing the mysterious old land, he felt his body hurt even more as if he were being cut by knives. It was common knowledge that living people from the world of the living couldn't enter the netherworld. But now, his physical body was entering a similar place. This made Chu Feng feel that something was wrong. If you continue to refine yourself like this, you might be able to become a saint with your physical body. You can rely on your physical body to enter the netherworld like walking in the world of the living. The voice traveled over once more. In the end, Chu Feng descended from the bridge and entered a mysterious country. This was like a different world. The land was black and energy was rising. Along the way, many people came to attend the banquet. They were like a group of ants holding up a praying mat. On top of it sat an old Taoist who was as cold as a ghost. There was also a flood dragon that breathed out mist. It was clearly a spiritual body that breathed out blue mist and arrived in the netherworld. There was also a palm-sized stone Buddha that was bleeding all over as it walked into the netherworld. These spiritual bodies were all different and unique. They should have died many years ago, but their spirits were still alive and came to attend the banquet. Chu Feng retained his physical body and simply stood out from the crowd. He followed a large group of special creatures into the depths of the mysterious old land. Then, he saw a giant blue spider lily that was rooted there like a towering tree. In his opinion, this should be the main body of the blue spider lily. Its true body was here. There was a person sitting under the blue spider lily tree. His entire body was hazy like a lump of blue light. He stood out from the masses and was precisely the owner of this place. Meanwhile, the banquet had also begun. These creatures toasted and chatted enthusiastically. They were all in high spirits. However, Chu Feng couldn't understand a single word. That was because these were all ghosts from the netherworld. They actually spoke in a completely different language. What made him feel the strangest was that the spiritual fluctuations from both sides were different. He couldn't decipher their intentions. Chu Feng was stunned. He just sat there foolishly. His body was in the netherworld, and his physical body felt more and more uncomfortable. Fortunately, the owner of this place, who was under the blue spider lily tree, opened his mouth and conversed with Chu Feng. When the world changed, I felt a sense of familiarity from the first time I saw little friend. I deeply suspected that it was that person who had returned and appeared in this world. Fortunately, this person's voice and spiritual fluctuations could be captured by Chu Feng. It was still in the universal language of this universe. What do you mean? Could it be that someone is reincarnating? Do you think I'm that person? No, you're not that person. Under the spider lily tree, the person in the ball of light opened his mouth and sighed. How can there be true reincarnation in this world? When Chu Feng heard this, he was instantly astonished. If there was no reincarnation and no netherworld, what was this before him? What was the millstone he saw in the radiant city of death? How could that path of reincarnation be explained? He had even personally carved words on some super soul bodies to witness their reincarnation. This world only talks about evolution. Strictly speaking, there is no reincarnation. There is only a transition in the rankings of life and a change in the form of life. As for what you've seen and experienced, I can guess that it was created by a great evolved being using methods that surpassed the understanding of the world. For example, you worship him and offer him tributes, achieving an equivalent exchange. Only then will he protect you to undergo nirvana and begin a new journey. After hearing this, Chu Feng was stunned. He pondered for a long time but still felt that it was useless. That was because many things hadn't been explained clearly and thoroughly. Chu Feng pondered for a moment and thought of the clay idol at the end of the path of reincarnation. It was enjoying rare offerings. Could it be that it was a great evolved being in the past? You haven't reached a certain level yet. Just treat it as reincarnation and understand it. Some things can be seen more clearly this way, the figure under the spider lily said. Afterward, he told Chu Feng that there was a problem with this part of the cosmos. A reincarnator from the outer realms had descended. From now on, every place would be restless. That was because people from other cosmoses had finally discovered these cosmic ruins. Chapter 6:17. Chu Feng's expression changed again. This news was too shocking and impacted his thoughts. According to what this mysterious being had said, the current universe was only a ruin? Then what was the broken universe in the primal chaos? Other than that, what were the other universes like? Chu Feng had many questions and countless thoughts in his mind. This mysterious being's words caused many thoughts to run through his mind. Although the broken ancient universe in the primal chaos is broken, it still has the form, outline, and order of the great universe. However, this place is a ruin. The mysterious being commented on this starry sky. According to his words, the truth was too shocking. Also, who was he? How could he know such secrets? Chu Feng couldn't help but ask a few questions, such as his identity. I'm very ordinary. I'm just a red spider lily in front of the netherworld. It was quite honest and made itself sound insignificant. Chu Feng was stunned. It was a red spider lily and was so powerful, yet it made itself sound simple. It was too humble. People from other universes reincarnated into this starry sky. What are they plotting? Asked Chu Feng. My guess is that something went wrong during the transition of life levels, and someone fell into our universe. You can also think of it as reincarnation into the wrong universe, but in my opinion, this is just a change in life form. The expert formed by the red spider lily mentioned reincarnation once again. This process was actually a journey of life imprints and a change in form. Chu Feng was speechless. If he really wanted to get to the bottom of this, it would most likely become an academic debate. The figure in the light said, in the eyes of some beings in the universe, our universe and these ruins might all be ghosts. Do you agree? Chu Feng was stunned. What kind of damned and arrogant universe was this? It treated the people here as spiritual bodies? Yes, they were full of vitality and young energy. They thought they were living in the real human world, but this starry sky has been destroyed and is a ruin. There are dead spirits roaming about and torrential energy. When Chu Feng heard this, he became absent-minded. Why did it sound so reasonable? Could it be that the whole world was full of ghosts and they didn't know? This made him feel uneasy, and the deepest part of his heart felt cold. This was especially so after hearing his theory of ruins. The entire universe had been destroyed and everyone had been buried. The more he thought about it, the more he found it terrifying. Furthermore, it made sense. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. The entire universe was filled with dead spirits. This overturned his worldview. The impact on him was too great. The red spider lily said, from your point of view, your yang energy is flourishing, and your blood energy is boiling. As for me, I'm in the netherworld, shrouded in energy. That's why I'm a ghost and you're a human. It's that simple. Similarly, the people from the other universe also think of you in the same way. Chu Feng smiled, but he felt a chill in the deepest part of his heart. His feelings were rather complicated. What he had heard today had overturned many of his perceptions. Since this is a ruin with heavy yin qi and is the netherworld in the eyes of other universes, what can those people do here? Chu Feng asked. Normally, they won't come. I've said before that it might be an accident, but their arrival will definitely cause an impact to this place, the red spider lily said. At the same time, he frowned and said, the vast universe outside, which is also the Yang realm or perhaps the human world, might be in chaos. That's why people came to this universe's netherworld to reincarnate. Senior, can you not be so scary? Chu Feng was speechless. How could it be so certain? This was the Yin realm, the netherworld, and the universe outside was the Yang realm, the human world? The truth is often cruel. The red spider lily sighed. Following which he added, of course this is relative. It's fine as long as you don't think you're a ghost. Chu Feng didn't have any more temper. He didn't even know if he was a human or a ghost. Life was too gloomy. That universe outside the realms, that human world, the yang energy is too abundant. To the creatures here, it might be like a raging fire burning their bodies. Chu Feng hurriedly interrupted and said, all right, I understand. Senior, you don't have to say any more. Our entire universe is the netherworld and dead spirits are everywhere. This should be fine, right? The more you talk, the more you'll damage the confidence of the entire starry sky. The red spider lily smiled and said, yes, I'm encouraging you. One day, when you're strong enough, go to the human world and become a human, not a ghost. Chu Feng really didn't know what to say. His expression was stiff, and he looked as if he had been struck dumb. After saying so much, why did Senior look for me? Why did you have to bring me into the netherworld? Come to think of it, the entire universe is a place where dead spirits stay. What's the point of this place where the Yin energy is denser? The red spider lily said, I came to have a chat with you. I won't hide it from you. I saw that you're a bit similar to a certain person, so I casually made a move. You're really direct and frank. Chu Feng had never seen such an existence before. A casual move could be clearly explained to him. The netherworld I stay in is very small. Compared to people like you, the Yin energy is denser. However, in the eyes of those in the outer realms, this universe is no different from my small piece of netherworld. They're all dead worlds, surging with Yin energy, and we're all ghosts. I'm not a ghost, Chu Feng corrected. Afterward, he asked further, Senior, why did you bring me into the netherworld? Nothing much, I just wanted to form some good karma and have a casual chat. One day, when you go to the human world, yes, after you become a human, you just have to help me do some things. Chu Feng really didn't like it and said, why do I feel so uncomfortable listening to you? The more I say, the more I feel like I was born in the netherworld and that we're all ghosts. It's too unpleasant to hear. The red spider lily said, sigh, that group of people in the human world, that's how they see us. Although it's unpleasant to hear, it might be the truth. Chu Feng rubbed his temples and said, forget it, I'm not going to have an academic discussion with you. You're still saying it's fine? You want me to return to the world of the living and go to the human world. This is definitely going to pierce through the heavens. This is a big matter. I'm not counting on you to succeed, it's just an idle chess piece. Sigh, I've arranged so many good chess pieces in the past, but in the end they've all become dead pieces. Those people are all dead. Don't worry, there's no agreement between us. Of course, I won't waste my energy on an idle chess piece like you. Chu Feng was moved after hearing this. He immediately said with a smile, Senior, you've already asked me to enter the netherworld. This is harmful to my physical body. Shouldn't you give me some pointers and guide some descendants? You don't need to count on this. You've guessed that your breathing technique is extraordinary and might be of great use even in the world of the living. You might even be able to reveal your true appearance. I have nothing else to give you. Besides, I can't even protect myself. If you want me to help you, then don't even think about it. It's already not bad that I can linger on in the netherworld. I'll vanish like smoke once I leave this place. Huh! Chu Feng's heart trembled. The robbery induction breathing technique would be of great use after entering the world of the living, which was also the human world. Could it have another true appearance? This caused great waves to rise and fall in his heart. At this moment, he really had some doubts. Could it be that he was indeed a ghost and would one day go to the world of the living and become a real person? Oh right, Senior, you should know about purgatory, right? Have you been to the ghost town? What's the situation there? Also, at the end of reincarnation, on the other side of the pitch-black abyss, there's a clay idol accepting human offerings. It seems to be able to open a backdoor for people and protect them from reincarnation with their memories. Does it have a special origin? Is it still alive? Oh right, Senior, can you tell me more about the land of reincarnation? Chu Feng asked one question after another. All of them were related to the great secrets of this world, causing the spider lilies to draw in cold breath. Have you really been to those places? You walked to the end of reincarnation and crossed the abyss to see the clay idol? I even stole its business, mumbled Chu Feng. On the other side, the figure sitting cross-legged in the ball of light staggered and almost fell. It was obvious that he was quite shocked. What have you done? He asked anxiously. Nothing much. I just recognized a group of relatives, and they're all my nephews. Chu Feng mentioned a few simple sentences and told him that he had carved words on many super soul bodies. Damn! The spider lilies couldn't stay calm and almost cursed. What kind of freaking chess move was this? This was simply a big mess. We're even and have nothing to do with each other anymore. In the future, I won't know you, and you won't know me, said the spider lilies solemnly. Chu Feng felt a little guilty from his serious attitude. He asked softly, Is it very serious? A group of geniuses has become your nephews. I can't afford to offend someone like you. Chu Feng was speechless. It seemed like he had caused quite a bit of trouble. There's a problem in the world of the living, which is the human world. Many people are thinking of ways to reincarnate. If you do this, Sai, I also don't know what will happen in the end. The spider lilies thought of what Chu Feng had done and frowned deeply. Where are they going to reincarnate? Asked Chu Feng. Everyone has their own fate. I can't say for sure, but most of them should be reincarnated into the world of the living, said the spider lilies. After that, it didn't want to say anything more. With a flash of light, Chu Feng immediately flew up and landed on the chariot pulled by the blue Qilin. They left the netherworld. Hey Senior, you can't send a guest off like this. I still don't want to leave. You didn't even let me drink a cup of wine. I still want to communicate with that bleeding stone Buddha and that Taoist priest being carried by a group of ants. Chu Feng dilly-dallied and left unwillingly. The spider lilies ignored him and threw him out of the netherworld. In the desert, the boundless blue spider lilies disappeared in an instant. The dense fog dispersed, and a red sun pressed down on the horizon. The sunset was gorgeous, and it was bright red. He came out of the netherworld just like that? Chu Feng doubted whether what he had just experienced was a dream or something that had really happened. The whole universe has been buried and destroyed. The entire starry sky is the netherworld, and we are dead spirits? Chu Feng stood in place with a gloomy expression. He was pondering whether it could be trusted. Is the robbery induction breathing technique rooted in the world of the living and the mortal world? He thought of many things. Chu Feng was quite shocked. It was just like how his worldview had collapsed after the upheaval. Now, he was experiencing it again. Was he trying to figure out whether it could be trusted? Not all of it might be true, but it can be used as a reference. The truth is often too terrifying. Chu Feng drew in a breath of cold air after thinking about it. He touched the stone box in his bosom. It seemed the spider lilies hadn't noticed it. It was truly strange. Chu Feng naturally wouldn't take the initiative to mention it and expose it. At that time, the spider lilies had stared at him endlessly and glanced at the diamond chakram a few times. However, it had neglected the stone box on his body. Chapter 6:18. Let's not think about that anymore. My injuries aren't light at all. Chu Feng observed his body and grimaced in pain. He had been struck by lightning the moment he came out from that strange pit. That place was specifically designed to deal with inauspicious things and purify them. He had almost been struck to death alive. Many parts of his body were almost charred black, and many of them were dripping with blood. Moreover, he had just gone to the netherworld and was being corroded by the Yin energy. This was one disaster after another. He hadn't felt anything while talking to the red spider lily, but now that he had calmed down, he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. After the extreme yang lightning came the extreme yin energy of the netherworld. I'm being corroded by two different types of yin and yang energy. I'm really unlucky to have to suffer like this. Chu Feng mumbled in dissatisfaction. He had been struck by lightning out of the blue and then invited into the netherworld. This was actually an undeserved calamity, at least in his opinion. He sat cross-legged in the desert and circulated the robbery induction breathing technique. He immediately began to absorb the energy particles between heaven and earth to recover his injured body. At the same time, Chu Feng took out a spatial bottle to play it safe. From within, he took out a pill that was emitting a dazzling radiance like a small sun. This was the six-path reincarnation pill. I've been to the land of reincarnation and also stepped into the netherworld. I was struck by lightning and my injuries aren't light. I need to eat a great pill to recover. The reason he chose this pill was because it had the word reincarnation in its name. It was similar to his current experience. If others knew about this, they would surely curse him out loud. What was a wastrel? What was a reckless waste of natural resources? This was vividly portrayed by him. Did he really think this was a candy? This kind of pill was very rare in the universe's black market. It cost 80 billion cosmic dollars for one. This was a life-saving pill specially prepared for the golden arhat level experts of the great sects to ensure that their golden bodies wouldn't break. Of course, apart from the great sects, many wandering cultivators didn't even need to think about golden arhat. They simply couldn't afford such an outrageous price. At first, Chu Feng was surrounded by white mist as he absorbed the beneficial energy particles floating in the desert. But now, after biting the six-path reincarnation pill, his entire body burst out with golden light. His flesh and blood squirmed, his organs swelled, and the sound of thunder was deafening. His metabolism sped up to a frightening degree. His cell activity increased by who knew how many times, and his whole body was boiling hot. Not to mention ordinary people, even other evolvers would not be able to withstand such a life form. Their vital indicators were too high. Finally, he stabilized himself. All the golden multicolored light flowed back through his pores and nourished his body. Then, all the injuries on his body healed. Originally, the robbery induction breathing technique was powerful enough to allow him to recover, but he was worried that he might be contaminated with some bad dead spirit substance after coming back from the land of reincarnation and entering the netherworld. Naturally, his injuries healed in an instant. Chu Feng calmed down. The whole desert was extremely tranquil amidst the afterglow of the setting sun. The red glow of the setting sun illuminated even the grains of sand with a sparkling scarlet radiance. Then, he sank into a deep visualization state. This was a kind of silent cultivation. He didn't move at all, as if he were on a mental journey. He began to travel in the visualization field. He hadn't properly visualized since entering this realm. But now everything was going smoothly. It was as if he had gained enlightenment and all sorts of thoughts regarding cultivation appeared. He thought of the deity races Luo-e. Observing the Kuan Pung intent, he felt that he had transformed into a Kuan Pung in a single breath. He spread his wings and soared into the sky, soaring 90,000 kilometers. As expected, a strange scene appeared behind him. A large black fish leapt out of the sea and transformed into a pung. Its wings were like clouds hanging in the sky, majestically tearing apart the void and entering the cosmic sea of stars. It was peerlessly tyrannical. Then, he observed the universe and the revolving stars. He stood in the firmament and looked down on the impermanence of the world and the evolution of the starry sky. Then, he looked at the surging mortal chi and the various states of the human world. Each state was a scene, and each image was a person's life. There were many thoughts in Chu Feng's mind. He tested them one by one, from the divine birds and primordial beasts to the galaxies and the phenomena of the human world. Then, he saw the river of time before him. There was no fixed form. Later on, the radiant city of death, the path of reincarnation, and the dozens of golden characters in the stone box all appeared and became his visualization targets. It was just like the decision he made when he broke through to the visualization realm. He wanted to visualize the phenomena of the heavens and all things in the world. He didn't need to stick to the form and wanted to keep trying. The so-called visualization, in Chu Feng's eyes, was to turn external objects for one's own use. The ancients had left behind many works with systematic discussions in this area. It wasn't that he suddenly came up with this idea, but rather he wanted to follow the path of his predecessors and take a step forward. That was because the world was too big. There were countless things and countless experts. Visualizing only one thing allowed one to concentrate and go all out. It was convenient to obtain a terrifying power. Chu Feng, on the other hand, didn't want external objects. Instead, he wanted a path to continuously improve himself. He approved of some of the ancient texts. Through visualization, one could learn from heaven and earth and all things in nature to perfect oneself. It wasn't necessary to use visualization to create the Kuan Pung, Tao Tai, True Dragon, and so on to increase one's battle strength. Doing so might result in nothing and miss the opportunity to increase one's battle strength through visualization. Of course, if he succeeded, he would be ever-changing and follow his heart's desire. He wouldn't stick to the form and would always use the most suitable visualization method for himself. Since ancient times, there were many evolvers who were brave enough to explore. However, creatures that were truly ever-changing and stood above the countless evolvers were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. 90% of those with too much ambition died miserably. Of course, they couldn't avoid the evaluation of having great ambitions but little talent. When Chu Feng evolved reincarnation, it was all too real. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared around him. The radiant city of death appeared and countless spirits formed a snake-like queue to hurry towards the end. Boom! In the evening, an astonishing bolt of lightning appeared and blasted the top of Chu Feng's head. A plume of black smoke rose and caused him to fall headfirst onto the ground. June to egg from the unseen world, damn it! Chu Feng's whole body was convulsing as he lay in the desert. The electric current was too terrifying and almost roasted him. I'm visualizing my own Tao. It's none of your business. What right do you have to sneak up on me and strike me with lightning? He sat up resentfully. If it was anyone else who was struck by lightning so abruptly, they would have definitely died. Even Chu Feng was a bit afraid and secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he had consumed the hellish ant elixir and applied the heavenly flame elixir to raise his corporeal body to the extreme level of his realm. Otherwise, he would have definitely been finished if a bolt of heavenly lightning struck him while he was comprehending. It would have been strange if he didn't die. Even if he didn't die, he would have probably suffered from chi deviation and been scared to death. Fortunately, I've walked the path of reincarnation once and witnessed saints being ground into a bloody pulp in the millstone. My nerves have long since become boundlessly thick. Otherwise, even if I didn't die today, I would have suffered a mishap from the shock. Chu Feng cursed. He stood up and faced the sky. He vaguely knew that his visualization of reincarnation had triggered a heavenly taboo. Even if there was no so-called ruler in the unseen world, the laws and order of the universe still existed. This was obstructing him. Chu Feng naturally wouldn't give up. He stood there and continued to visualize. He had already thought it through. The object he visualized wouldn't be fixed in a certain form, but he still had to focus on some things. This reincarnation was naturally the most important. Boom, boom, boom. The lightning bolts came one after another, all of them shockingly thick. They were silver at first, and then the descending bolts turned blood-red. The scene was too frightening. Without a doubt, Chu Feng's visualization tribulation had arrived. He had advanced to this realm for some time, but with his powerful strength, there was actually no lightning punishment descending. This was abnormal. Today, he was visualizing reincarnation. This tribulation had arrived, and it was unprecedentedly powerful. The blood-colored lightning seemed like the heavens were crying. It was simply too shocking. Streak after streak of bloody light drowned out this place. From afar, the world seemed to be crying, and a rain of blood as long as the heavens and earth seemed to be crying. Chu Feng grimaced in pain. This feeling was too unbearable. He had just recovered his body, but now, his flesh was split apart again. He was dripping with blood, and in many places, even his bones were exposed. It was truly a bit miserable. However, he clenched his teeth and persevered. He continued to visualize reincarnation and was determined to continue. If the lightning can't stop me, you still have to acknowledge my Tao fruit. Why bother? Hurry up and leave. Chu Feng dawdled. Then, with a boom, dozens of blood-red lightning groups descended, all of them landing on his body. His skull almost flew out and there were even cracks on it. Motherf *****. Chu Feng cried out. This was too miserable. With a boom, even more black lightning descended in the end. It was extremely strange. When it blasted his body, it actually bore into his body, specifically aiming to destroy his spirit. Too sinister, you Jun Tua egg from the dark. You really aren't anything, wanting to mount a sneak attack on my spirit, but you've miscalculated. Grandpa Chu's spirit and flesh have merged into one, and my body is imperishable. Chu Feng refused to accept this. He continued to visualize and endure the heavenly lightning strike. Of course, he didn't forget to speak lowly and show off over there. This heavenly tribulation continued for 2 whole hours. It was unknown how many times more violent than a normal heavenly tribulation. The most important thing was that the duration was also excessively long. Stars appeared all over the sky. The desert had long changed greatly. Not to mention sand dunes, there wasn't even any sand left. An enormous pit had been hacked out in this place. It could even be said that it was a great canyon. It was pitch black inside, and magma flowed on the ground. Many places had turned into rocks after cooling down. Chu Feng lay on the ground. The magma around him hadn't dried up yet, but he didn't want to move at all. Many of the bones in his body had been broken, and he was truly in an extremely miserable state. Motherf ****, it's different from what's recorded in the books. Didn't they say that at the beginning, 1 bolt of lightning fell at a time, adding up to a total of several dozen bolts of lightning, and that was it? Your grandpa, according to this standard, why do I feel like I've experienced tens to hundreds of heavenly tribulations? Jun Tua egg from the dark, I greet all the women in your family. Chu Feng was truly furious. Just now, that really took his life. If it wasn't for the fact that his constitution was too powerful and far surpassed those of the same realm, then he would have definitely died. Moreover, it would have been a miserable death, and even his bones would have been hacked into dregs. Whoosh! Chu Feng rose into the air and lay down just like that. He visualized himself turning into a white cloud and flew out just like that. He had to leave this place. The feeling of being soaked in magma was too unbearable. Even though his corporeal body was very powerful, it had now been hacked into pieces. If he stayed any longer, he would truly be cooked through. This won't do. I have to eat more candies. Chu Feng landed on the edge of the desert and lay on a sand dune, gulping in large mouthfuls of fresh air. Finally, there wasn't the smell of sulfur, thunder, and fire. Chu Feng am back. He wanted to shout, but he suppressed it. It was too embarrassing to return like this and be hacked so miserably. This wasn't a glorious return, but a return in ragged clothes like a beggar. I have to eat more candies. Chu Feng ate another 6 paths of reincarnation pill because he felt that this thing's medicinal effects were truly astonishing. It had a great effect on strengthening the muscles and bones and strengthening the spirit. Moreover, it could increase one's potential. If others knew of his thoughts, they would definitely sigh speechlessly. This was a divine pill, so it could naturally make up for one's origin. The benefits were too great, but the key was, who could eat it like candies? What a shameful waste. Chu Feng naturally didn't feel the pinch. Last time, he had sold so many divine sons and saintesses. Whether it was the 6 paths of reincarnation pill or deity elixir, he had obtained quite a lot. After distributing it to Yellow Cattle and the others, it was still enough for him to use in the short term. After I've used them up, I'll go sell divine sons and saintesses in the future. Of course, when the time comes, I'll have to consider those who are ranked highly and famous. Of course, he had to keep a low profile at this stage and couldn't expose himself. Even if he wanted to sell divine sons, he had to do it in secret. This time, he had come back prepared to trick people. At first, he definitely didn't want people to know that he had returned alive. I'll rest for a bit and leave tomorrow morning. I'm already back anyway, so one more night won't make much of a difference. The main thing was that his bones were all broken and his skull had almost been blown away. No matter how powerful his constitution was, how heaven-defying his breathing technique was, and how he had eaten the 6 paths of reincarnation pill, he still needed some time to recuperate. Chu Feng was covered in blood from head to toe, so he wasn't worried about being recognized. At the same time, he began to think of some ways to hide his true appearance. The people from the outer realms probably can't do anything to me. They can't observe me all the time. Chu Feng was confident that as long as he had a peerless secret treasure on him, the clairvoyance would be ineffective. He had the stone box on him. It was hard to say how heaven-defying it would be after one of its sides was awakened, but it should be enough to disrupt the heavenly mysteries. After all, he could even walk on the path of reincarnation with it. Director, there's a dead person here. Do you think we should film it? It's very suitable for an important scene in The Return of the Great Sage. Stop dilly-dallying. We have to go to Mount Longhu tonight. That's the most important scene. Don't provoke any dead people. It's quite scary. Especially the thunder and lightning 50 kilometers away just now. It's too strange. Oh, no rush. Let me take a look. At this time, the director personally came over. After seeing the wounded Chu Feng, he said, "Oh my, not bad. It matches the miserable scene of the great sage's return in my mind. If we film it, it can be used as an important scene. There's no need for makeup or any makeup. In any case, it's a dead person, so there's no need to pay for the appearance fee. If worse comes to worst, we can drag him to Mount Longhu and use it for a day or two." Director, you're really black-hearted. You're willing to do anything just to save money. Chu Feng's expression was odd. Then, the wind became chaotic. He could even meet an old friend here? It was the lousy director who had shot the demon ox, the great sage, Zhou Etian. He was going to shoot a second film? However, his expression was slightly dark. How did he meet this director again? Moreover, he had inadvertently become the main character of his film. He thought for a moment and didn't move. It just so happened that he was going to Mount Longhu, so he might as well take their flying tool and rush there overnight. He didn't know what the situation was over there. Back then, his parents lived on the mountain. Chapter 6:19. Chu Feng lay there, his vitality dormant within his body. At the same time, he allowed his body to cool down. He was in a state of suspended animation, watching with cold eyes. Then, he saw this group of people tossing and turning in all kinds of fancy ways. The filming equipment was all in place, and they called for the female lead. They wanted to do some sensational scenes with this dead man. Although Chu Feng's eyes were closed, he could still sense the people around him with a wisp of his spirit. He found that the female lead was actually someone he knew, Xia Qianyu. He almost sat up. This was too familiar. This was the first blind date he had ever gone on in his life. The scene was still fresh in his memory. She had dragged Jiang Luoshan along on the blind date, and in the end, all three of them had made the headlines. This big-eyed, pure beauty had actually become the female lead of The Return of the Great Sage. How could he have imagined this? However, she was indeed an actress. During the blind date, when Chu Feng had said that he was also the lead of a certain movie, she didn't believe him. Together with Jiang Luoshan, she thought that he was a swindler and complained about him in all kinds of ways. Of course, later on, when Demon Ox the Great Sage was released, everyone was shocked. Naturally, Xia Qianyu was also stunned. After a long time, Xia Qianyu was as youthful as ever. Her big eyes were clear and pure, just like when she had just graduated from the blind date. She still had the temperament of a typical campus student. Yes, just like that. Hug his corpse affectionately and firmly believe that he will wake up. Director Zhou Etienne was there to guide her. Xia Qianyu protested in a low voice, saying that they had already agreed that she wouldn't have to hug when she left the stage. Zhou Etienne cried out in grievance, saying, "Oh my young lady, please show yourself for the sake of art. This is the most sensational part of the entire movie. We absolutely can't abandon it. Moreover, he is only a dead man. This so-called physical contact, you can just treat it as a stone or a table." Dead man? Xia Qianyu was immediately scared. Don't worry, he has already been tested and sterilized by the team doctor. He just died not too long ago, so there's no problem at all. What era is this? Aliens and mutants can be seen everywhere. This is just a dead man. If it were an alien beast, I would definitely barbecue it and eat it later. Zhou Etienne was quite bold and unrestrained. Then, the emotional scenes began. Xia Qianyu held Chu Feng in her arms. Her face was stained with tears. She called out to him with all kinds of emotions, even touching his face. If not for Chu Feng's blood, she would have definitely recognized him. After all, they had gone on a blind date before and the impression was too deep. At first, Chu Feng was still calm. Since it was a beautiful woman hugging him, he might as well pretend to be dead. However, he couldn't take it anymore. From time to time, tears would fall on his face. Chu Feng looked at Xia Qianyu, who was hugging him and pressing his head against her ear. He gently blew into her ear. Xia Qianyu felt an itch in her earlobe. She was so scared that she screamed. She threw Chu Feng to the ground and turned around to run. Her movements were swift and agile. After all, she was now an inhuman. What's wrong? Zhou Etienne and the rest of the cast and crew were shocked. He's alive. He bit my ear. Xia Qianyu's towering chest was heaving up and down violently. Her beautiful face was devoid of blood. She was really scared out of her wit. A dead man actually had a reaction. His hot breath touched her white earlobe. It was too frightening. That's impossible. We've already checked. This person is completely dead. He looks like a loser who escaped from the Kunlun War. His life force is completely extinguished. The team doctor did not believe it. He was very courageous and personally ran over to confirm that this was indeed a dead person. Zhou Tian waved his hand and said, "All right, the scene just now has passed. Let's go to Mount Longhu tonight." "Director, we're in too much of a hurry. We can't even take it if we leave overnight," someone complained. Zhou Tian sighed. "There's no other way. Recently, Mount Longhu hasn't been peaceful. I heard that the aliens have occupied the place. At present, they're still allowing people to approach. I'm worried that after a period of time, that place will become a place of trouble. We won't be able to film in the vicinity. Those grandsons are really arrogant. When Chu Feng was here, he beat them until they didn't have any temper. He sold a bunch of divine sons and saintesses, but now, Shu, lower your voice. Nowadays, evolvers from the outer realms are running amok. We can't guarantee that some of them will fly over here. It's already good enough that they haven't massacred our Earth. Sigh, it's a bit of a pity. I wonder how those great demons and Chu Feng's parents are doing. Have they been blocked there?" When Chu Feng heard these words, the depths of his eyes suddenly became incomparably cold. A murderous intent filled the air. Why is this place so cold? In the distance, the cast and crew members shivered. Chu Feng hurriedly restrained the murderous intent in his heart. Zhou Tian said, "Let's go." "Oh right, don't forget to bring that corpse. There's no need to dress it up. It can still be used when we reach Mount Longhu." "Director, don't be like this. It's too inauspicious to bring a corpse along." Someone was frightened. In order to save on filming costs, Zhou Tian brainwashed them. "What era is this? You're still talking about auspiciousness? The streets are full of monsters. Angels and black dragons are flying in the sky. Not only have all kinds of mythical creatures come to life, but some have even been placed on the dining table. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the strength of Chu Feng to be able to eat them. In this era, everything that should be seen has been seen. What's there to be afraid of?" On the other side, Xia Qinyu still didn't know that the corpse was also going with them. She was communicating with someone in the distance. "Hero Luo, let me tell you, this movie you introduced to me is haunted. I was scared to death just now. Hurry up and bring that powerful divine monk to Mount Longhu tomorrow. Help me purify it. I'm still scared. Right, ask that great master Qian Jia to come and save me." "Oh right, aren't you going to make a cameo appearance in this movie? Hurry up and come to Mount Longhu tomorrow." Before long, an aircraft that looked like both a spaceship and a battleship took off from the desert. As the extraterrestrial creatures continued to descend and various ruins were excavated on Earth, part of the black technology fell into the hands of the native. Now, all kinds of spaceships were being developed in large quantities. Of course, it was far from enough to perform a spatial jump and enter the universe. The ruins where such technology was located were too high-end, and the extraterrestrials wouldn't allow the people of Earth to control them. They rushed to Mount Longhu overnight. Chu Feng was sitting cross-legged in the storage compartment, meditating. His breathing technique and the 6 paths of reincarnation pill played an important role. All the bones in his body were broken, but it wasn't a problem at all. They were all growing back. Moreover, after the baptism of the lightning tribulation, his flesh and blood had become even more sparkling and translucent. His spirit was filled with dense yang energy, and his constitution had become even more powerful. By the time they arrived at Mount Longhu, Chu Feng had completely recovered. He felt much stronger than before. After more than a month of tempering in the purgatory space, coupled with the baptism of the heavenly tribulation, his physical quality had improved by a lot. He pretended to sleep and was moved out of the storage compartment. Only when those people went to rest and left did he get up and gaze at Mount Longhu. After more than a month, he had returned. It was almost dawn and the sky was about to brighten. Yao Yao had once said that people from the outer realms weren't allowed to set foot on Mount Longhu. Now it seemed that some people had crossed that line and occupied this place. He could clearly feel demonic chi surging on the mountain, and great flags fluttering in the wind. There were experts overseeing things. Yao Yao isn't here anymore. She's far away in the primal chaos of the broken universe, and I was killed and buried in purgatory. That's why these extraterrestrials charged in without any misgivings. Chu Feng took out some profound magnets from a spatial bracelet and poured them into a groove on a piece of bronze. He smelted it and arranged a miniature domain. Then he refined the bronze into a mask and wore it on his face. There are methods to change the topography of the mountains and rivers in the domain. It can also be used on the human body, changing the bones, flesh, and so on. It can also change one's appearance. But I'm still a bit lacking, so I'll use a mask for now. However, Chu Feng controlled his height and weight. He really couldn't expose himself at this stage. Just like that, he entered the mountains. Then, he saw a little demon in the mountains. He grabbed this demon with a human body and a bird's head and whispered, "If you want to live, you have to answer everything I ask." Apparently, a group of experts from the outer realms had made this place their stronghold. They occupied the mountain and acted quite unbridled. This small demon was drunk, so they were quite unbridled on the mountain. At this moment, it was so frightened that it sobered up and revealed a terrified expression. Unfortunately, Chu Feng didn't get the answer he wanted. This small demon came later and didn't understand the situation here. It only knew that its master, the night demon, was in charge of guarding this place. His magic power was boundless, and he had always been the master of this place after Mount Longhu changed owners. My master is ranked 98th among the experts of the younger generation in the universe. Although it was afraid, it still spoke proudly. This ranking seemed quite a bit lower than Qin Luoyin and the others, but it wasn't simple at all. The universe was so vast and there were too many vital planets. Those ranked in the top 100 were bound to be at the top of all the vital planets in their respective galaxies. Their talents and strength were bound to be exceptionally terrifying. In fact, some people believed that as long as they were ranked in the top 100, they would have boundless potential. Even if they were lagging behind at this stage and ranked 90th, it wouldn't be a big deal. That was because they might catch up from behind and become heaven illuminators. At that time, it would be unstoppable with boundless potential, and they would become the future overlords of the universe. There were many such examples. Even the top 10 geniuses of the universe's younger generation might be overturned in the later stages, and their rankings would be completely changed. My master's sworn brothers are even more powerful. Each one is stronger than the other. There are world-shaking characters ranked in the top 10, and they even have the innocuous divine physique. They're known to be invincible. The small demon's words were full of pride and admiration. Those who didn't know better would think that his brothers were so heaven-defying. Chu Feng's heart stirred. Innocuous divine physique. He remembered that the Earth's true one, Zhou Shang, had such a physique. It was the legendary innocuous divine physique that was known to be invincible. Chu Feng couldn't get too much information out of him, so he knocked him out with a slap and mercilessly cut off part of his spiritual memory to avoid any mistake. After that, he asked another small demon. In the end, this evolver with a tiger's head and a human's body reeked of alcohol the moment he opened his mouth. Chu Feng's parents? I don't know. Who do they think they are? They don't understand the situation. Even Chu Feng is dead. He's been completely annihilated. If any of their people dare to stir up trouble, they'll be killed immediately. Chu Feng kicked him until he fainted. He cut off his memory and threw him into a temporary latrine pit at the side. This group of demon race evolvers really have terrible habit. They made a latrine pit at the side of the road. How inconsiderate. Chu Feng entered the mountain and interrogated a few people in succession. In the end, he didn't get the information he wanted to know. Who does Chu Feng think he is? He's already been killed. What's the use of mentioning his family? They're just a bunch of losers. This was the most information he got from these drunkards when he interrogated them. These small demons were very arrogant and insolent. Chu Feng sighed. He had only fallen for a little over a month, but he already felt that things were still the same, but the people had changed. The group of small demons from the outer realms didn't care about him anymore. They'd even forgotten about him selling divine sons and saintesses. Afterwards, he let out a low roar and surged with purple chi. Chu Feng revealed his divine might and directly entered the mountain, ready to find the main character. The so-called night demon wouldn't be able to bear the consequences of occupying his territory. Director, look. There's a situation on Mount Longhu. Does this count as natural material? Outside the mountain, a crew member woke up and called out to Zhou Etienne. Damn! Zhou Etienne immediately cried out after waking up. Purple chi comes from the east. I've left Hanggu from the west. Oh my, I'm not dreaming, am I? Someone really rode an ox to Mount Longhu. Moreover, he's wearing a diamond chakram? At this time, what he was seeing was naturally what Chu Feng had visualized. Chu Feng visualized a green ox and sat on it. Above his head, a vast and mighty purple aura spread for dozens of kilometers. He also visualized a special diamond chakram and wore it on his wrist. He stepped across the sky and went to suppress a group of evolvers from the outer realms in Mount Longhu. Zhou Etienne was pleasantly surprised. This time, something big is definitely going to happen. Film it all for me. I have a feeling that this return of the great sage will become popular throughout the universe. Director, aren't you too confident? Someone beside him curled his lips, thinking that he was talking in his sleep. Zhou Etienne solemnly vowed, "What do you know? The heavenly eyes from the outer realms are all monitoring Kunlun and simply can't capture the situation here. We're the only ones following and filming. In case a world-shaking battle breaks out, all parties will definitely come to buy the copyright from us. Our film will naturally become popular throughout the starry skies." The surrounding people were about to cry. The director was simply courting death. If other people wanted it, why would they ask him for it? They would directly snatch away the filming material. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. The people from the Origin Beast platform in the Outer Realms are in contact with me. In case we accidentally film some extraordinary material, we can sell it to them. They will protect us. Zhou Etienne patted his chest and guaranteed. Chapter 620. Chu Feng's voice was truly astonishing. The sky had already brightened. An ray of light appeared on the eastern mountaintop. A wisp of golden multicolored light blossomed as he rode the ox across the sky with a terrifying momentum. A vivid and lifelike large green ox carried Chu Feng into Mount Longhu on its back. It hovered in the air and looked down. You must be tired of living to dare behave atrociously here. Don't you know this place has already been occupied by my clan Saint Child? This is our ritual ground now. Gram. A golden eagle spread its wings and soared into the sky. It was several hundred meters long. This was a small leader under the Saint Child, the night demon. It was very domineering, and when it spread its wings, it shot out arrows formed from its feathers. Buzz. Chu Feng raised his hand and plucked off the diamond chakram he had visualized and smashed it down. The diamond chakram glowed and sucked in all the feathers, grinding them to pieces. Then, with a buzz, the diamond chakram spun and smashed into the golden eagle's body. It let out a blood-curdling screech as its beak was filled with blood. Following which, it disintegrated on the spot. Who dares intrude into my Mount Longhu to commit murder? A shout was heard. The disturbance here alarmed the evolvers with comparatively greater strength. A few extremely powerful waves of demonic aura soared into the sky. Chu Feng's gaze was faint. He hadn't returned for a period of time, and Mount Longhu had really changed owners. These outer realm entities regarded this place as their territory and him as an outsider. Back when Yao Yao was still here, who dared to be impudent? Who dared to enter Mount Longhu? She had once warned the various races in the starry skies, but in the end, no one dared to take even half a step into the minefield. Yao Yao had left. Finally, some daring evolvers had come to occupy this famed mountain. The density of Chu Feng's energy rose sharply and his body became increasingly brilliant. The large green ox he was sitting on raised its head and emitted a muffled sound. It was becoming more and more real. Rumor had it that if one could visualize to the extreme, it would be creation and could evolve into a real creature. Of course, ordinary people couldn't use this kind of method unless their cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds one day and they became a taboo character. Then, they could go back and recultivate the visualization realm. At that time they might succeed. But this also pointed out a path for the cultivators of this realm. Visualization was endless, and creation was an inconceivable thing. The green ox carried Chu Feng on its back and walked leisurely across the mountain area of Dragon Tiger Mountain. It entered the depths of the Divine Mountain and approached the location of the Night Demon's headquarters. Record everything. Don't miss anything. Behind them, Zhou Etienne roared. He was extremely excited, and his sleepiness had long since disappeared. Don't worry, Director Zhou. This is the latest black technology product. I guarantee there won't be any problems. The cameraman was also very excited and replied softly. At this time, Xia Qianyu and the others had also woken up. They were quite surprised, especially when she looked at Mount Longhu. For a moment she thought that it was Chu Feng, because the back view was somewhat similar. In the end, she sighed. It couldn't be that person. After all, he had died in the Kunlun purgatory. Everyone knew that Qin Luoyin had personally sent him off. Moreover, if one looked closely, this person's shoulders were wider than Chu Feng's, but he was slightly shorter. Naturally, this was Chu Feng's domain methods. Although he couldn't completely change his body, he could still fine-tune and conceal his true body. He was wearing a bronze mask and riding a big green ox. The vast and mighty purple mist above his head stretched for nearly 10 kilometers, becoming increasingly divine and powerful. It was as though a Taoist from the legends had arrived in a leisurely manner, accompanied by immortal energy and supreme Tao arts. Quite bold. Didn't you hear what I said? Blind thing, you actually dare charge into Mount Longhu. This is my family's young master's territory. At this time, an old demon appeared. He was in the visualization realm, a large crocodile. At this moment, he was breathing in and out yellow mist as he revealed his true form and flew into the air. His body was dozens of meters long and couldn't be considered too excessive. However, his blood energy surged to the heavens like an erupting volcano. His voice shook the entire mountain ridge. Moreover, his blood energy covered many mountain peaks, causing the whole mountain range to tremble. Giant rocks tumbled and many towering trees swayed. It seems Mount Longhu has been unsealed quite a bit. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to set foot here, Chu Feng muttered to himself. Hurry up and get down here. This isn't a place where you can act presumptuously, shouted the old crocodile. It opened its 6-meter-long mouth and revealed its sharp teeth. A fishy stench assaulted one's face. Bang! It seized the initiative and swept its tail toward Chu Feng. In the blink of an eye, its tail expanded dramatically and fell down like an azure river of stars. Boom! The air exploded and white mist exploded. The scene was terrifying. Doubtlessly, if this wasn't Mount Longhu, some of the mountain peaks would have been smashed to pieces on the spot. The energy contained within this tail was too terrifying. A little reptile dares act presumptuously in front of me? Chu Feng reached out with a hand suffused with purple mist. It rapidly enlarged and grabbed downwards. With a bang, he caught the crocodile's whipping tail and lifted it upside down with a sudden force. Following which, he lifted the crocodile upside down and flung it outside of Mount Longhu. With a boom, an ordinary mountain outside of Mount Longhu was smashed to pieces by the old crocodile's body. Smoke and dust soared into the sky. In the distance, Xia Qianyu, Zhou Yitian, and the others were dumbstruck. To them, this was simply like a myth. That was an old demon at the visualization realm, yet it was being beaten so violently just like that. It was as if someone was swinging a hemp rope and casually whipping it. Chu Feng frowned. This old crocodile's body was truly sturdy. Ordinary mountain peaks were far inferior to it. He lifted the crocodile and flung it toward Mount Longhu. Boom! There were domains here. This was a divine mountain, so it was naturally incomparably sturdy. This caused the old monster to let out a blood-curdling screech. In a flash, it was badly mutilated. This time, it couldn't smash the mountain peak. What kind of person was this? How could he be so abnormal? It was terrified in its heart. Logically speaking, the most powerful beings that could descend on Earth were only at the visualization level. There were a few who had special methods and might be a realm higher, but there were very few of them. It could be said that it could be considered a top-notch expert at present. However, it was now like a rotten rag doll being casually beaten by someone. "Master, save me!" it cried out loudly. At the same time, it said fiercely to Chu Feng, "Do you know who my family's young master is? He's a peerless genius ranked in the top 100 in the entire universe. He can illuminate the heavens in the future. You can't afford to provoke him. Let me go. And among my master's sworn brothers is the innocuous divine physique. He's invincible under the heavens." It would have been fine if he hadn't mentioned the innocuous divine physique. Chu Feng could still remain calm, but when this kind of physique was mentioned, Chu Feng immediately thought of the so-called Earth's True One. Immediately, he didn't have a good impression of it. Moreover, this old demon actually dared to threaten him. He immediately used all his strength to fling it. With a bang, the old demon's body was lifted onto the main peak of Mount Longhu. It let out a mournful scream on the spot and turned into a pile of meat paste. It couldn't be more dead. Damn! In the rear, Zhou Yitian and the others couldn't help but be astonished. Where did this almighty expert come from? He was too tyrannical and tyrannical to the extreme. He'd eliminated a visualization-level old demon in one go? The main reason was that Chu Feng was even more powerful than a month ago after returning from the purgatory space. Old crocodile. A few strange cries could be heard as a few great demons flew out. They reeked of alcohol and were tipsy. They had drunk too much, so their reactions were half a beat slower. As a result, they could only watch helplessly as their companion died without being able to rescue him. Now, mist was rising from their bodies and dispelling all the alcohol. Then, they roared loudly and pounced toward Chu Feng to kill him. Someone even shouted, "Go to the secret realm of Mount Longhu and find the young master." One of them brandished a tiger-headed spear and stabbed forward. It brought with it wind and thunder, and the most terrifying thing was that it was still blooming with densely packed lightning as it bombarded toward Chu Feng. "I hate being struck by lightning the most," Chu Feng said with a dark expression. Next, he stretched out a large hand and snatched the great spear away. Then, a fist imprint erupted as he went all out. He didn't use a secret technique that would allow others to recognize him, but rather a barbaric charge. With a boom, his fist smashed that visualization-level great demon into pieces. A bloody mist blossomed, shocking everyone on the spot. One punch. It was only one punch, yet he'd smashed a super great demon to death. One had to bear in mind that this was a divine child, an outstanding and famous expert who followed the night demon. Yet he'd been smashed to death just like that. He was even more powerful than old Crocodile just now. Tyrannical, too powerful, truly ruthless. Who is this? At this moment, Zhou Etienne was trembling. He was excited and felt that his anger had been vented. That was because he had also heard that Chu Feng's parents had originally lived in Mount Longhu. Now that the night demon had occupied this place, he didn't know how they were doing. After all, he and Chu Feng were friends. You dare! The remaining people fell back and ran with all their might to invite the night demon. Moo! With a roar, the big green ox flew out. The ox trod on the vast sky and actually let out a rumbling sound of thunder. It was intimidating and caused the whole world to tremble. A thunderous sonic boom erupted under the ox's feet. With a boom, a great demon was overtaken by the big green ox and was trampled to death. Another visualization-level divine child had died miserably on the spot. In the rear, Xia Qianyu, Zhou Etienne, and the others were shaken. They simply couldn't believe it. This time, that person hadn't even made a move, but the green ox he was sitting on had trampled a great demon to death? At this time, Chu Feng once again smashed out the diamond chakram he'd visualized. Another great demon exploded into a mass of red mist, destroyed in both body and spirit. Who dares to invade my Mount Longhu and intrude into my night demon territory? Finally, the main character had come out from a dimensional space within Mount Longhu. In other words, a secret realm was surging with murderous intent. In all honesty, he was very valiant and well-built. His red hair draped over his chest and back, and his eyebrows were like swords and his eyes were like stars. His entire aura was strong, and there was a heroic spirit within his handsomeness. This was the night demon. His real name was Yema, and he was ranked among the top 100 young geniuses in the entire universe. He naturally had his outstanding points. Chu Feng was wearing a bronze mask and riding on the big green ox's back. His aura was even stronger as he looked down and said, "Where are the people who originally lived on this mountain? They're all dead. I've slaughtered them all. Who are you to dare provoke me?" Yema asked coldly. Chu Feng was furious. Regardless of whether what he said was true or false, it immediately stirred his killing intent. "Are you courting death? What a joke! Who do you think you are to dare talk to me like this? Aren't these just some random cats and dogs from Earth? So what if I kill them? What are you so excited about? It seems you're also a native. However, it's not just you. Even the so-called powerful native Chu Feng of the past, even if he's reborn, I'll beat him until he kneels and begs for mercy before slaughtering him." The night demon was very tyrannical as he spoke coldly. He stared at Chu Feng and said, "You dare kill my subordinates? Today I'll make you wish you were dead. Kneel and accept your punishment." He was ostentatious and conceited. He rose into the air and emitted a torrential blood energy. He was like a ferocious demon who had slaughtered millions in the past. His ruthlessness was boundlessly terrifying. In reality, he had indeed killed many creatures. He had once annihilated a race that was hostile to him and wiped out hundreds of thousands of people. Chu Feng looked at him coldly and continued to ride the big green ox forward. However, his own aura was soaring because his killing intent was boiling. He didn't get off his mount, but one of his palms shone with golden light. He raised his hand and the golden palm shone with runes. Chu Feng used his absolute power and smashed it with all his might. The runes in his hand weren't simple. They were the characters on the black talisman paper he had obtained from the land of reincarnation. They were very similar to one of the dozens of golden characters on the stone box. At present, this was the only golden character that Chu Feng could see clearly and reproduce. Now it appeared on his palm. Boom! This attack caused the void to tremble. Zhou Etienne, Xia Qianyu, and the others in the distance were extremely nervous as they paid close attention. "Record it! Don't miss it!" Zhou Etienne shouted excitedly. He had a premonition that something big was about to happen. You dare wave your palm at me so casually? The night demon rushed over with a cruel smile on his face. He raised his fist to attack Chu Feng. He used an extremely terrifying secret technique that could devour people's souls. Then, he was stunned in the next moment. The golden runes on Chu Feng's palm glowed, as if they were specialized in restraining this kind of secret technique that targeted souls. The night demon's body trembled as his secret technique failed. Then, he was slapped in the face, causing him to scream miserably. His entire face was deformed and his skull was almost shattered. He flew out horizontally with blood flowing from his mouth and several teeth broken. The most terrifying thing was that he felt as if he had experienced reincarnation. His entire body was trembling. He was truly shocked and terrified. This was a secret technique that specifically targeted his race. It was too terrifying. The so-called night demon was a demon king that walked in the darkness as if he had come from the netherworld and the underworld. Chapter 6:21. Zhou Etienne's body spasmed slightly as if it had been electrified. This was caused by his extreme excitement, and his body was trembling. A single palm had sent the famous night demon flying with blood spurting out of his nose and mouth. Even several of his teeth had fallen out. This was too fierce. He had never seen such a tyrannical lord before. He felt that he was even more powerful than the previous Chu Feng. With a wave of his hand, he could make a young expert ranked in the top 100 in the universe so miserable. How shocking was this? Behind him, Xia Qianyu and the other members of the cast and crew were also trembling. They felt electrified from head to toe. This was much more shocking than watching them film, and their emotions were fluctuating intensely. They all cried out in a low voice. Where did this fierce person come from? If this video were to be leaked, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. It was likely that the young experts of the outer realms wouldn't be able to sit still. Night demon crashed into a mountain peak, causing the earth to shake and a large area of ancient trees to fall. The ground cracked, and many giant rocks tumbled down from the mountain. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. With a flip, he leapt up. His long red hair danced in the wind like flames, and his eyes shot out astonishing beams of light like two blazing bolts of lightning. It was somewhat frightening. Night Demon sobered up and broke away from that terrifying reincarnation state. The depths of his heart throbbed. This person was absolutely terrifying, but he was also so angry that he had been slapped in the face as soon as they exchanged blows. Not to mention this stranger, even if he were to face the young Buddha, Ing Wudi, the Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique, and the Immortal Destiny Physique, he wouldn't necessarily be so unbearable, right? Whoever dared to come up and be so arrogant, he would directly slap them in the face. This was intolerable. His eyes spat out flames, and all 36,000 pores on his body opened up, spewing out black energy with a slight underworld aura. Of course, he didn't dare to use that secret technique again. Once was enough. He already knew that if he wanted to use a great killing technique to devour someone's spirit, it would be no use at all. On the contrary, he would be abused. Normally, he was always successful when dealing with others. Once the great spirit-devouring technique was used, the most powerful peerless geniuses of a galaxy would all die with a grievance and without even knowing why. In the end, he encountered such a ruthless fellow. Die! Night Demon roared like a sovereign of the night. Black mist surrounded his body, and black energy gushed out from his pores, covering the entire area. It was as if he was standing in a black hole. Boom! His fist smashed over like a black stellar stream, deafening, sweeping through the void. It was extremely shocking. Honestly speaking, this person was extremely formidable, having his own unique areas. If it was the Chu Feng before he fell into the purgatory space and wanted to fight against him, It would indeed take some effort to kill him. However, Chu Feng had walked the reincarnation path, and comprehended too many fist imprints and sword intents outside the ghost town. He himself had comprehended many things. In addition, he had crossed the heavenly tribulation after returning, and his strength had increased greatly. The current Chu Feng's physique and other aspects had greatly improved, so he was naturally very calm. Bang! Chu Feng was still sitting on the big green ox's body. He only raised a palm and made a simple strike. A faint golden luster appeared and pressed downwards. The divine might was awe-inspiring, and the void exploded. In addition, the purple aura above his head was vast and mighty for more than 20 miles, and the big green ox he was sitting on had smooth fur and was full of vigor. It had just trampled a saint to death, and Chu Feng was like a god sitting on it. Rumble! The void exploded, and the night devil roared. After he smashed his fist with all his might, it was indeed powerful. It made the entire space seem as if it was collapsing and distorting violently. Even the light became dim. The air exploded, and the white air current was incomparably terrifying. After it splashed everywhere, it was many times denser than the white fog caused by several jets. However, such a terrifying fist was dissolved by Chu Feng's faint golden palm. The golden symbol in his palm was brilliant and glistening, possessing the power of indestructibility. Night Devil felt incomparable pain in his fist, as if he had collided with a demonic mountain made of rare mother gold. He couldn't move it at all, and the surface of his fist was in so much pain that it felt like it was splitting apart. With a bang, Chu Feng gently closed his palm and grabbed his fist imprint. He was about to crush it and cripple his right fist. At this moment, Chu Feng revealed a hint of a smile. He had already confirmed that the special symbol copied from the black talisman paper was indeed heaven-defying and somewhat extraordinary. Not only was it effective against the spirit body and soul, but it was also effective against the opponent's spirit-devouring technique. Moreover, it was still so astonishing in physical combat. Ah! Night Devil roared, and his fist imprint suddenly burst forth. His arm was trembling and emitted terrifying black ripples, wanting to shatter Chu Feng's large faint golden hand. However, he was both shocked and furious. After his fist was grabbed, not only was he unable to shake off that terrifying palm, but his entire fist was also in pain, as if it was about to shatter. In the end, he shot out like a bolt of lightning. His right hand was badly mangled. He used the bone-shrinking technique and flexibility technique to struggle free from Chu Feng's grasp. However, his own right fist was almost crippled, and his bones were cracked. Swoosh! At this moment, the big young man leaped into the air. He was no longer slow, but had suddenly disappeared from where he was. It was as if he had shrunk the ground to an inch and arrived in front of him in a single leap. Boom! This time, Chu Feng took the initiative to attack. His right hand enlarged and his arm also lengthened. His palm was like a large golden millstone that pressed down from the sky rapidly, bringing with it the sound of wind and thunder and tens of thousands of rays of golden light. It was too fast. It was truly shrunk the ground to an inch, and it was impossible to guard against. Chu Feng had sold so many saints before and naturally had collected some secret technique. This was the shrunk technique recorded in an incomplete scroll that he had obtained. It was similar to the world's end near at hand through a different method. Especially since he was proficient in the world's end near at hand, it was very easy for him to use the shrunk technique. Night Devil's expression changed. He couldn't dodge and could only take it head-on. His hands turned into palm imprints and struck upward with all his might. Black energy erupted like a volcano, but the magma was black. It surged and boiled upward. Unfortunately, even if he struck out with both his palms, he couldn't block Chu Feng's large hand that descended from the sky. The millstone-like golden palm imprint was surging with blood and qi, causing the void to distort. There was a loud explosion like surging thunder, and the nearby mountains were shaking violently. Night Devil spat out a large mouthful of blood. His arms were in intense pain as if they were fractured. His entire body almost went limp and fell to the ground. However, taking advantage of this slight delay, he managed to buy some time. Burning black energy all over his body, he retreated backward. Facing such a terrifying and mysterious opponent made his heart go cold. Pow! However, the large golden hand in the void was too fast. With a flip of the hand, it pressed down again. This time, it wrapped around his body and whipped him into the air. In particular, his face was slapped by the large golden hand. Night Devil screamed shrilly and was full of resentment. Blood sprayed out from his mouth and nose, and his face was distorted. His face had almost been slapped off. This time, more than 10 teeth fell out. At the same time, his body was also in intense pain. This time, it wasn't just his face that had been struck. Other parts of his body also felt as if they had been rammed by an ancient barbaric ox. His body was about to break and fall apart. He was like a kite with its string cut. He fell headfirst and blood splattered everywhere in midair. Behind him, Zhou Tian, Xia Qianyu, and the others were all dumbfounded. Where did this person come from? He was too heaven-defying. He had taken care of Night Devil in just a few moves? They simply couldn't believe it. Not to mention them, even the group of small demons from Mount Longhu and the few divine children who were still alive felt their scalps go numb. They felt waves of horror. This person was too powerful. It was a little too terrifying. This kind of scene was simply like a father rubbing his son. They weren't on the same order of magnitude at all. Night Devil was so famous, yet he was beaten up so casually. Once news of this got out, the entire starry sky would be shaken. This was like a cosmic hurricane. It was enough to alarm the young experts of all races. This battle was too terrifying. Boom! In the next moment, Chu Feng attacked again. His right arm became longer like a golden river of stars hanging down. His right palm shone like the palm of a Buddha. The golden five-phase mountain descended, suppressing everything in the world. Night Devil flew into a rage out of humiliation, but there was nothing he could do. When he saw the dazzling golden palm pressing down like a river of stars in the sky, his heart went cold. "Friend, let's talk things out." "Stop!" he roared. A hint of coldness appeared at the corner of Chu Feng's mouth. He didn't pay him any attention. Previously, he had asked nicely, but this person was extremely arrogant, calling him a native. He said that even if Chu Feng was resurrected, he would have to kneel and be slaughtered by him. Now that he was no match for him, he softened his tone. How could there be such an easy thing? Therefore, he didn't pay him any attention and slapped down. Golden reincarnation symbols flickered in the center of his palm, and a terrifying aura spread out. His palm and fingers were like a great mountain, majestic beyond compare. With a bang, Night Devil screamed. This time, his arms were completely broken and hung limply. His entire person was dispirited and listless. He was almost paralyzed on the ground by Chu Feng's slap. His whole body was drenched in blood, and he couldn't even stand. "Stop, friend. I admit defeat. Ask whatever questions you have. I'll tell you everything I know," Night Devil said. With a slap, Chu Feng slapped him again. This time, he was sent flying. His face almost exploded, and all the teeth in his mouth fell out, mixed with blood. One shouldn't hit someone's face when hitting someone, but Chu Feng didn't care about this. He was just cutting off the skin of his face. This kind of person had to be beaten until he was afraid, and then he would take the initiative to confess those things. "You!" Night Devil was extremely humiliated and angry. No matter what, he was an exceptional genius ranked in the top 100 in the universe. In the end, he was humiliated like this for the first time in his life. He was guessing whether this was the immortal destiny physique, the divine glass golden body, or the superfluous combat physique. It was so powerful that even someone as powerful as him couldn't retaliate and was suppressed the whole time. "Are you the winged godhead or the immortal Dao bone physique?" he asked. He wanted to know Chu Feng's identity. "I'm just an ordinary physique, but it's enough to take care of you guys." Chu Feng finally spoke. Night Devil spat out blood. How come he had never heard of such a powerful and fierce person of this generation? Moreover, it seemed like he was an evolver born and raised on Earth. "Friend, stop when you're done. If you continue like this, won't you be going too far?" Night Devil spoke with a faint look in his eyes. He was truly afraid. Encountering such a fierce person, even he himself felt that it was really like a father beating his son. It was too *King frustrating. The gap between them was not just a little big. Moo! At this moment, the big green ox that Chu Feng had visualized moved. Its fur was incomparably bright, as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. It arrived in an instant and raised its four hooves. With a bang, it trampled Night Devil under its feet, shaking him so much that all the bones in his body were broken, and he coughed up blood continuously. "Motherf *Cur. You've gone too far." Night Devil was in pain all over and felt too wronged. This was an asymmetrical battle. He was far inferior to his opponent, and he didn't know where this monster had jumped out from. Chapter 622. The Night Demon was in a miserable state. He had been cut by Chu Feng and then stepped on by the big green ox. Who knew how many bones in his body had been broken? His eyes were rolling back and he was about to pass out. "Speak." Chu Feng looked down at him calmly. He couldn't search the memories of an expert. If the gap in spiritual power wasn't too great, doing so would be troublesome and dangerous. The Night Demon was indignant. Ever since he came to Earth, he had always looked down on his enemies and looked down on all the natives on this planet. When had he ever had such an experience? It really made him feel ashamed and furious. However, he had no choice but to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. If he dared to be stubborn now, he would probably be trampled into meat paste by the big green ox on top of him. "When I came here, those cats and dogs." Just as he said this, he felt his chest cave in as an ox hoof fell down. His whole body was almost trampled through, and his mouth was full of bloody foam. His body had once again suffered serious injuries. "When I came here, the place was already empty." He quickly corrected himself, feeling incomparably sullen. At the same time, he explained that he wasn't the first to occupy Mount Longhu. He had taken it over from his sworn brother, Wan Jianxing. "Who is Wan Jianxing? What's his background?" Chu Feng asked. The Night Demon was stunned. At the same time, he cursed inwardly. What a motherf *King native. He didn't even know who Wan Jianxing was. As expected, he didn't pay attention to the major events in the starry sky. Chu Feng could tell from the look in his eyes that he didn't have anything good to say. Without another word, he urged the big green ox he was sitting on. Its huge hoof fell down and directly trampled on his mouth, causing blood to spurt out in all directions. The Night Demon was indignant and whimpered incessantly. He had never seen someone with such an explosive temper. He had always been the one who attacked people at will because he didn't like them. Today, he had met someone even more ruthless. He had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. In the end, he was in so much pain that he transformed into his true form. This was a big black cat with a shiny black body and smooth fur. It was as big as a water buffalo. At the same time, it had the aura of the netherworld. Unfortunately, it's a male. Otherwise, I'd give it to Brother Tiger. He'd definitely like it. I'll ask him if he wants it later, Chu Feng said to himself. The Night Demon was furious. What was this? It hurriedly shouted, "I'm an underworld cat, a different race from a tiger. They all look the same." Chu Feng didn't mind. "There's a huge difference. The underworld cat became anxious. From what he said, it seemed like he was going to give it to a male tiger. Its fine hairs stood on end as it experienced the heavy taste. It was too frightening. At this time, Chu Feng had already calmed down and was no longer worried. He guessed that the black yak and yellow cattle had retreated with his parents in time and were not harmed. The underworld cat informed him that Wang Jianxing's strength transcended the powerhouses of the various races. He was ranked 19th in the latest rankings of the universe's younger generation and was unfathomable. The top 20 experts meant that they could look down on their peers with great potential. Even the top figures in the starry skies would look at them differently. In fact, whenever there was a grand gathering, these youths would also receive a higher level of respect when they attended with some of the older generation. This was because they were destined to become the overlords of this starry sky in the future. Is being ranked 19th that amazing? But he's also courting death by daring to charge into Mount Longhu. Next, Chu Feng asked Wang Jianxing if he had encountered yellow cattle and the others when he came here and if he had started a massacre. The underworld cat night demon was bewildered. He also replied using the spiritual secret language, but great waves arose in his heart. Who was this person? He paid special attention to Chu Feng and his friends and inquired endlessly about them. Their identities were too suspicious. I'm asking you a question. Did you hear me? Chu Feng stared at him intently. After the battle between Demon King Chu and Fairy Qin at Mount Kunlun that day, those people from Mount Eternal used the 10 rotten ships to kill indiscriminately. Then, they decisively retreated and rushed to Mount Longhu to take everyone away. The night demon's response didn't exceed Chu Feng's expectations. He was completely relieved. After Wang Jianxing descended to earth, he wanted to kill Yellow Cattle, Big Blackie, and the others from Mount Eternal, but he failed. In the end, he occupied Mount Longhu and went out to sea several times to search for traces of those people. Does Wang Jianxing have enmity with Chu Feng? Why does he want to kill his family? Chu Feng frowned. This young expert from the outer realms ranked 19th had touched his bottom line. Even if nothing had happened to his parents, it still made his killing intent surge. He wants Chu Feng's breathing technique. He wants to capture his parents and investigate it from them, the underworld cat replied. He was now very honest and answered whatever was asked. He's courting death, Chu Feng said coldly. At this moment, the night demon was scared. The two of them had been using the spiritual secret language all along, so he had discovered some clues. This person's identity was too suspicious. I heard you have an even more powerful sworn brother with the innocuous divine physique? He's known to be unrivaled under the heavens, Chu Feng asked. The night demon nodded and said, yes, there's one. He comes from an unknown vital planet in the Aimu galaxy. It's truly astonishing that such an unrivaled divine physique could emerge from such a desolate area. Chu Feng was very vigilant about the innocuous divine physique. It was reported that only a few people with such a physique had appeared since ancient times. It was ridiculously powerful. Earth already had one, so how could another one appear in the so-called Aimu galaxy? He was a little suspicious. Was it the same person? That was because Chu Feng had a similar idea. He wanted to pretend to be an outer realm being and carry out the so-called thief calling thief to catch thief. He wanted to get rid of his current troubles and attack as an outer realm being. He suspected that the Earth's true one, Zhou Shang, also had this idea and had put it into action. Where's the innocuous divine physique? Where did you meet? He should be exploring the ruins of a famed mountain. We met on Earth and had a rather congenial chat. Chu Feng was increasingly suspicious. Could this innocuous divine physique really be the Earth's true one? He actually happened to have the same idea as him. They both wanted to obtain a safe identity in this way. Soon after, Chu Feng's killing intent soared. According to the Netherworld Cat, the innocuous divine physique had told the night demon, Wan Jianxing, and the others that Chu Feng's breathing technique was extraordinary and worth exploring. It might be the robbery induction breathing technique which had a great origin. Chu Feng's eyes turned ice-cold after hearing this. He was increasingly suspicious that the so-called innocuous divine physique was the Earth's true one, Zhou Shang. If it was him, then he really deserved to be killed. He didn't object to the other party pretending to be an extraterrestrial. This was in line with his style of not wanting to become enemies with the outer realm. However, this person had turned around and wanted to deal with his parents. He wanted to kill Yellow Cattle, Big Blackie, and the others. This was inexcusable. It was fine that the Earth's true one didn't deal with the outer realm beings, but he even targeted evolvers from the same planet. This was somewhat hateful and deserving of death. However, he was still suspicious at the moment. He couldn't be sure and needed to seek confirmation. What's the innocuous divine physique called? Chu Feng asked. Li Qingfeng, the night demon answered. Chu Feng frowned and then asked, if I can't find the innocuous divine physique right now, then where is Wan Jianxing? He took down Mount Zhongnan and is overseeing it. The Netherworld Cat answered every question. Chu Feng's eyes were cold. This group of Outer Realm evolvers was truly powerful. This Wan Jianxing first occupied Mount Longhu and then took down Mount Zhongnan. What was he trying to do? He's ranked 19th among the universe's younger generation. Even if he doesn't come to Earth, there will be countless orthodoxies willing to nurture him and give him enough evolutionary resources. What is he looking for on Earth? The Netherworld Cat hesitated and said, he's indeed looking for something, but I don't know. However, there are too many good things on Earth. After all, it was once extremely glorious and coveted by the 10 Great. Naturally, Wan Jianxing was moved. Oh right. Both the innocuous divine physique and Wan Jianxing want the robbery induction breathing technique. Is it extraordinary? No matter how powerful it is, it can't compare to the 10 Greats, can it? I didn't know before, but there's been some secret news recently. The broken universe in the primal chaos has too much yang energy. For some reason, the robbery induction breathing technique is more suitable there. Some taboo characters have always wanted to explore the broken universe. This kind of technique, Chu Feng knew what was going on without the Netherworld Cat having to say anything else. At the same time, he was shaken. Could it be that what the red spider lily said was true? This entire universe was in ruins, a vast netherworld, and everyone was a dead spirit? Correspondingly, there was an unimaginable yang realm and a real human world. The broken universe in the primal chaos should be located between the netherworld and the human world. It was a transitional region, but even so, the yang energy was incomparably dense. It made the people of this universe feel uncomfortable. Chu Feng felt that after living for so many years, his worldview was collapsing. He was a ghost, but he wasn't a real person? This was really King ridiculous. Next, Chu Feng searched around Mount Longhu. He personally entered the secret realm and searched carefully. This place was very important, but after more than half a day, he didn't make any shocking discoveries. The underground palace and capital of Mount Longhu hadn't come into being yet. Go to Mount Zhongnan. Chu Feng was surging with murderous intent. He couldn't find the innocuous divine physique for the time being, so he was going to attack Wan Jianxing. Then, he sat on the underworld cat and treated it as a mount. The night devil cursed in his heart, but he didn't dare say anything. He was an expert ranked in the top 100 and looked down on a galaxy. He was known as a peerless genius, yet he had actually been reduced to a mount? Turn into a cow for me. I don't like sitting on a cat. This was Chu Feng's request. The night devil, I #yen% and meow. Its black fur was glossy like satin, but right now all of the fur on its body was standing on end. It was clearly quite angered. "What are you crying for? Hurry up and turn into a cow," Chu Feng berated. "This king will fight it out with you." The night devil meowed and wanted to fight to the death with Chu Feng. However, he was slapped so hard that he saw stars and blood sprayed out of his nose and mouth. He became well-behaved again and said dejectedly, "I really can't transform like that. At most, I'll look like a black tiger." Chu Feng had a look of disgust on his face as he turned it into a black tiger. He rode on it and rushed to Mount Zhongnan. The underworld cat looked at his expression and was so angry that it wanted to take him down with it. However, after some thought, it realized that even if it died 8 or 10 times, the other would still be fine. In the end, it lowered its head again. Meow. It let out a cat cry and began to run through the void. Its speed surpassed the speed of sound and was like a black tiger from the legends. It brought with it strong winds and thunder. The scene was terrifying. Black light overflowed and lightning interweaved around it. It was quite astonishing. Jiang Luoshan arrived just in time to see this scene. She saw a man wearing a bronze mask riding a large cat into the distance. She was immediately bewildered. "He looks a bit like Chu Feng." Her heart was shaken. The two of them had shared a bed on Mount Pudua. Although nothing had happened, their relationship was still quite close. She naturally had a deep impression of Chu Feng and was very familiar with him. Along the way, the night devil roared. Its black body was like lightning as it ran far and wide. It stepped through the void and the sound of explosions rang out incessantly as it crossed the sky. Cats were originally intelligent and could easily come into contact with dead spirit. The more powerful ones could even devour spiritual bodies. Meanwhile, the night devil was an underworld cat that was born in the vicinity of Ain land. It grasped the great killing technique of devouring one's spirit. If it hadn't encountered Chu Feng, who had the reincarnation symbol in his hand and specialized in restraining its great spirit-devouring technique, it would have died a miserable death if it had been anyone else. On Mount Zhongnan, there was a boom and an explosion of thunder. Chu Feng treated the spirit cat like a heaven-flipping seal. He grabbed its tail and used all his strength to throw it out, smashing it into the mountain. Boom! Rubble flew into the sky. The scene was terrifying as countless plants exploded into pieces. A meow was full of resentment and anger. The underworld cat was almost angered to death. It had carried this mysterious person all the way to Mount Longhu. Even if it hadn't done any meritorious service, it had still worked hard. In the end, it had been used as a brick and smashed into Mount Zhongnan just like that. How could this be? Wan Jianxing, get out here! However, this exceptional genius ranked 19th in the cosmos wasn't here. Chu Feng had come empty-handed. It was said that he had gone to visit a friend and explore some historical remains. Chu Feng's expression was gloomy. In the end, he had no choice but to leave. He decided to go to Mount Eternal and meet up with Yellow Cattle Big Blackie and the others. He wanted to tell his parents that he hadn't died. "Night Devil, come here." The underworld cat was extremely unwilling. Its whole body was covered in injuries and 2 of its bones were broken. It could be said that injuries were piled on top of injuries. However, it still dilly-dallied as it approached. Next, it was asked to be used as a mount. It was incomparably indignant. In Xin Province, it carried Chu Feng all the way to the Eastern Sea. The underworld cat cursed him over in its heart. How hateful! It felt that it was too unlucky to have encountered a devil incarnate and was helpless to do anything about it. Sigh, I should go and see the dragoness when I get to the Eastern Sea, but I can't expose my identity. There are still many people I have to go and see. Oh right, what is the damning Pure Land doing after Qin Luoyin's return? Do they want to take revenge? Do they want to capture my parents and the others? Chu Feng's imagination ran wild along the way. He simply hadn't thought that Qin Luoyin would get pregnant. That was because it wasn't scientific, and didn't conform to the laws of evolution. That goddess-level character simply couldn't tolerate such a thing happening. Even if it was possible, she would refine it in the bud. He had already entered the Eastern Sea. The underworld cat stepped on the surface of the sea and ran all the way. It was very obedient after being tamed. Just as Chu Feng's imagination ran wild and thought that it was impossible for him to have descendants at this stage, the real situation made him speechless. If he knew, he would definitely be dumbstruck. In a certain place in the starry sky, the young Taoist was incomparably indignant as he shouted, "It's happening again! This mother wants to kill me all day long. Damned heavens, why am I so unlucky? Just what kind of mother did I encounter?" Chapter 623. Blue waves undulated in the Eastern Sea. Giant beasts would surface from time to time, stirring up 1,000-meter-tall waves. They were all monsters. Some resembled creatures from the dinosaur era, while others had never been seen or heard of. Ever since the upheavals, the creatures in the ocean had undergone the most obvious changes. Many mythical bloodlines had reappeared as a result. Chi, amidst the undulating waves, a large group of mermaids leapt up from the azure waters and then fell back into the ocean. Their graceful postures were pleasing to the eye. They looked delicious. "I love eating fish." The underworld cat licked his lips, revealing his sharp, snow-white teeth. Chu Feng slapped his head and said, "You can't even protect yourself, yet you're still thinking about food. You'll cry in a while." The night demon lowered his head and said, "Tao friend, please spare me. I've already given in and lowered my status to be your mount. We don't have any deep enmity, so how about we let bygones be bygones? Hurry up, don't think too much." Chu Feng didn't want to pay attention to him. He took out a rock and began searching for the location of Mount Eternal. This was a rock from Mount Eternal. If one didn't have one with them, they wouldn't be able to find their way back once they left that place. "Go that way." Chu Feng pointed the way like an old horse. Ayo! Tiger roars shook the sky and the sea. There were a number of golden sea god tigers, all of them ancient species. It was quite rare to see them in this era. Back when Chu Feng was fighting the marine race on Mount Longhu, he had fought against an exceptionally powerful sea god tiger and tore off half of its tail. This caused the tiger to fly into a rage and hate him to the core. "The one I fought before is also among them." Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. The sea god tigers had grown wings and their bodies were surging with golden light. They broke through the water surface and were also hurrying in a certain direction. "Goddamn it, a group of sick cats dares to block my way? Get out of the way!" The underworld cat howled and used the spirit-devouring technique to oppress everyone's mind. It was about to charge over. Chu Feng sighed. In this era, it was normal for a cat to bully a tiger. He couldn't stand it. Although the sea god tiger had fought him to the death back then, things had changed with the passage of time. He no longer viewed the other party as an enemy, and he couldn't bear to see a king of Earth being humiliated by an extraterrestrial underworld cat. With a slap, he told it not to cause trouble and continued on his way. "This is so frustrating. Fish can't be eaten, and sick cats can't be bullied. What fun is there in life?" The netherworld cat muttered. It was purposely trying to find a sense of existence because it was scared. It was afraid that Chu Feng would slaughter it once they arrived. Right now it was carrying out all kinds of probing. "That's not right." Chu Feng was puzzled. All sorts of monsters in the sea were moving towards the same direction without saying a word. Their faces were filled with sincerity as if they were on a pilgrimage. Could it be that something was happening? Afterward, he saw sea turtles as large as islands, dolphins with dragon horns, and even killer whales as large as mountains. They were all moving in the same direction in group. Chu Feng decisively stopped a clam girl who was walking on the wave. Her 2 snow-white clam lids were sparkling and translucent like wings. She had a graceful and elegant figure, but at this moment, her beautiful face turned pale as she felt the pressure brought by the night demon. "Don't be afraid. I only have a few questions to ask you," consoled Chu Feng. Afterward, he soon found out that the marine race was holding a grand meeting near the Rubik's Cube in the depths of the ocean. They were discussing whether they should once again enter the continent and enter Kunlun to search for fortunes. What's going on at Kunlun? The home of myriad gods is about to open. It's said that the origin magnetic sacred physique, the immortal destiny physique, Ingwudi Yuan Shicheng, and the young Buddha are fighting to the death. They want to seize the path to enter the home of myriad gods. There's a world-shaking fortune there. There's such a thing. Chu Feng revealed an astonished expression. He already knew that the divine glass golden body, the superfluous combat physique, and the innocuous divine physique had come into being. They were contending for hegemony on Earth, and had shaken the universe. They had become the focus of attention, and he wanted to find a chance to size them up. Chu Feng hadn't expected that their decisive battle at Kunlun would lead to the opening of the home of myriad gods. This was a major event. It was said that the immortal peach ancestral root was rooted there. Additionally, there were also some ancient engravings, all of which were treasured inheritances. He had to hurry there. But did the marine race have the qualifications to contend for hegemony? At the present stage, the beings from the outer realms were all very powerful. There weren't many evolvers on Earth who had the strength to challenge them. The sea goddess in the Rubik's Cube needs to choose a body to carry her consciousness and enter Kunlun's home of myriad gods, answered the clam girl. Chu Feng was startled after hearing this. He had long since known that a mysterious Rubik's Cube had fallen into the ocean, causing the various races in the sea to increase in power. It had also passed on many cultivation methods to them. Now, the mysterious woman sleeping in the Rubik's Cube had awakened. She wanted to borrow a body to be reborn and make a trip to Kunlun. This was definitely a terrifying matter. That was because that woman was unfathomable. She could already control the island to cross the universe and hide in the Rubik's Cube to invade Earth. This was too astonishing. However, Chu Feng had no intention of investigating. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. He didn't want to provoke the mysterious woman in the Rubik's Cube, so he continued on his way. "Why didn't you tell me about Kunlun?" Chu Feng asked the Netherworld cat. The Netherworld cat laughed dryly and said, "You didn't ask me?" In reality, it was afraid that the other party would kill it after making use of it. That was because it vaguely felt that this bronze-masked man was very familiar with Chu Feng and close friends with those from Mount Eternal. It didn't matter if he went to see Yellow Cattle and the others, but if he went to Kunlun and met people from the outer realms, the other party would most likely kill him to prevent information from leaking. Finally, they arrived at Mount Eternal. The surrounding mist pervaded the air and covered the sea. Chu Feng's heart skipped a beat. He felt that someone was spying on him, and it was very powerful. For a moment, he couldn't determine where they were hiding. A wisp of golden light appeared in the depths of Chu Feng's eyes. He squinted and quietly probed with the fiery eyes. Then, his heart trembled as he saw a small boat in the distant sky. It was emerald green and sparkling, and it was diving toward him at top speed. "Let's go." Chu Feng urged the Netherworld cat and then laid down a domain. They disappeared from this place, submerged directly into the mist, and vanished from sight. That person was Yuchi Kong, the Earth's True One's Tao protector. Chu Feng's pupils were cold. He didn't have a good impression of this person. Before his battle with the deity race's young god and Qin Luoyin, this person had come looking for him again and again with a strong sense of righteousness. He wanted him to hand over the robbery induction breathing technique and even forced him to take it. He didn't see Yuchi Kong and the Earth's True One during the true battle with the Outer Realms. But at the critical moment, they coveted the inheritance on Chu Feng's body. They even wanted to ask for the hellish ant elixir, deity elixir, and other fortunes that Chu Feng had obtained himself. This made him extremely disgusted. Yuchi Kong and the Earth's True One considered themselves to be part of the Heaven's Chosen One's lineage, but their actions made Chu Feng unconvinced. What is this old fellow doing here? Chu Feng's expression wasn't very good. He had a vague guess. Could it be that he wanted to stop Yellow Cattle, Big Blackie, and the others? Could he want to capture his parents and continue to interrogate them about the robbery induction breathing technique? Thinking of this, his expression became even more unsightly. Chu Feng didn't stop. He wanted to see Yellow Cattle and the others. He wanted to quickly recognize them and tell them that he had returned alive. Swoosh! The Netherworld cat was very fast. Amidst his bewilderment, he rushed to the island in the depths of the mist. This place was devoid of vitality. There were rocks everywhere, and even the old trees were all rotting. The 7 towering mountains on the island were imposing and terrifying. They stretched across the center of the island as if they had cut off the heaven and earth, blocking this place. Chu Feng had arrived. He was still quite a distance away from the mountain gate when he heard the whistling of the wind, as well as thunder and sonic booms. Energy surged and was abnormally dense. These days are too dull. This won't do. I still have to go out and do something big. I'll kill a group of saint children and loot those outer realm orthodoxies. I'll take revenge for Brother Chu Feng. He heard the voice of an old friend from far away. That's right, the home of myriad gods is about to open. When the time comes, we'll go too. We'll drive the eternal ship and kill everyone. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. We'll make them pay the price in blood. Yes, it's time to move out again. My mood is even worse now that I heard that damning Pure Land girl came back alive. Damning Pure Land even announced that Qin Luoyin killed Brother Chu Feng. My mood is getting worse and worse. I'll kill them all. Don't let anyone from damning Pure Land leave this time. God damn it. Hee-haw, hee-haw. Brother Chu Feng, you died a miserable death. Rest assured, I'll burn incense for you every year and talk about you every day. Rest in peace in heaven. Of course, you can come back often if you miss us. The old donkey rubbed the corners of his eyes for a long time. He could only howl dryly and couldn't squeeze out a single tear. After saying these words, he looked up and saw Chu Feng. He was so scared that his scalp went numb. He scrambled backward with goosebumps all over his body and shouted, "Oh my God, it's haunted! Brother Chu Feng, I was just saying it casually. You really came back to see me. Hurry up and leave. I'll burn 10 ships of incense for you next year. Come back next year, but don't do it this year. It'll scare people to death." It was simply chaos. The old donkey kicked his hind legs and ran without looking back. At this time, the black yak stood up with a whoosh. His large horns swayed and his copper bell-like eyes were wide open. He simply couldn't believe it and was incomparably excited as he stared at Chu Feng. The Manchurian tiger, on the other hand, rolled his tiger eyes and said, "Brother, did you run home because you heard the old donkey's ramblings?" "Yes, I missed everyone. I had nothing to do, so I took a stroll out of the netherworld. Look, I even brought you a gift. Brother Tiger, what do you think of this tigress? It's a black beauty." Chu Feng kicked the netherworld cat over. He had long since put away the bronze mask before approaching this place. At this time, the night demon was frightened out of his wits. Who did he see? Chu Feng. The mysterious expert he was carrying was actually the strongest evolver on Earth, who had long since been regarded as a dead person by all races. In an instant, he understood everything and figured out all kinds of things. Immediately, his head swelled up and his hair stood on end. The other party most likely wanted to silence him and not let him leak any information. Immediately, he shivered in fear. The Manchurian tiger hadn't come back to his senses and replied subconsciously, "Brother, this black beauty is male and seems to be a cat. Isn't the netherworld too dark? You brought the wrong gift." It was still the black yak who was calm. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, he let out a strange cry and directly pounced over with tears in his eyes. "Brother, I knew you weren't dead. That's great, you've finally returned. We brothers can fight side by side again." Seeing him like this, Chu Feng was also very moved and gave him a warm hug. Unexpectedly, the black yak immediately bit his finger and almost drew blood. He cried out, "It's a physical body! It's real! It's not a ghost! Damn, Black Boss, you almost bit my finger off!" Chu Feng grimaced in pain. The black yak hurriedly wiped away the hot tears in his eyes and laughed out loud. He patted his shoulder and said, "It's good that you're alive. You really made us worried and on tenterhooks. Recently we've even lost hope. Who would have thought that brother would actually come back at such a critical juncture? You're really lucky. When the time comes, we brothers will kill our way to Kunlun and blind those dog eyes. We'll shock them to death." The Manchurian tiger roared and pounced over. He was incomparably happy as he gave Chu Feng a bear hug. "Hee-haw, hee-haw. I knew it. Scourges live for 1,000 years. Scourges at the universe level like us brothers have to live for hundreds of thousands of years at least. This old donkey has long since guessed that brother Chu Feng can't be dead." The old donkey was shameless. He straightened his pair of large ears and bared his buck teeth. He had completely forgotten about how he was crawling and scared just now and came over without a blush. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.